Hello, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
So, for anyone that missed the chat, this was supposed to start at 8:30. 8:30 is our usual start time. When I set up the event, I set it up as starting at 8. I don't know why. And so instead of penalizing the people that showed up on time, but also not penalizing the people that show up at the regular time, we decided we would do a pre-show once we were done with the technical stuff, which we just finished with the technical stuff. So, if you guys have any just chatty questions for us,
This is a good time to live chat questions to Alex and Anthony, who aren't on the show very often.
Yeah,
a perfect point, Param.
True story.
So if you got questions for Anthony or Alex, hey, I got the pointing right.
Nice.
Then ask them.
And especially if they're questions
that
wouldn't
secrets.
be good content for the show. So don't ask them what they think of Occult Adventures.
Yeah, don't ask them that, because we're totally going to ask them that.
Or we might just tell you the wrong things to mislead you.
That would be dishonest.
Why?
I expected better of you, Alex.
Occult Adventures? I thought we were reviewing Oriental Adventures.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, are we?
Good old 3.0 hardcover.
Yep.
Though
there were certain points in this book I could have confused the two.
Yeah, there were.
I'm actually going to be making a lot of comparisons to 3.5. Well, actually, in the classes, I'll be able to make a lot of comparisons.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
a lot of
that's content.
Favorite episode
Alex.
of Supernatural thus far?
I
So,
would lose myself from this
my
conversation. I've seen
my
none of it.
current first favorite is the last one I just watched. It's about a boy. It's called About a Boy. It was surprisingly fresh considering that it was a season 10 episode, and I just thought the kid that they had play Dean in that episode was fantastic. He was great. I was dying at his Dean impression. It was wonderful. Besides that, I have to admit I'm a sucker for the fan fiction episode this season too. That was a really good episode.
Ah.
I mean, but then
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was saying I haven't seen any season 10. Is the About a Boy, like, do they get babality? Do they get turned into kids?
Only Dean does, yes.
Only Dean, okay.
So we've seen Little Dean before, but probably not this actor.
Oh, but it's so funny to see Little Dean with normal age Sam. That's what makes it great. Like the
He's
back and
acting
forth.
like adult Dean?
No,
Or is he acting like a kid?
Yeah, he's still acting like adult Dean, and it's just the jokes are wonderful. It's like after like season 7 or so, there hadn't been many really funny episodes of Supernatural. Like the last one I can think of between 7 and 10 was like the one where with the marriage where Sam gets married to Becky. Yeah, that's a really good one. The French Mistake is a good one. I think that's what I'm talking about now, right? The one where Sam gets married to Becky. Or no, that's season 7, Time for a Wedding. I don't know the names. Don't throw names at me. I just know what
just
happens.
came up with the name, which is pretty impressive because I've never been able to remember episode names of any TV show.
Well, as Anthony can attest to, sometimes information just appears in my brain and I spit it out.
True.
The French Mistake. That one. That's a really funny one. Okay, yeah. Thank you, Ash Saber. That's totally a really good one too. Any episode where they're meta is a really good episode.
Why was it called The French Mistake? I know that episode.
I think
it is a good episode.
I think it's because they spend most of the episode making fun of Celine Dion, but I'm not sure. Is she from French Canada?
She is from
French-Canadian?
Quebec. Yes, she's French Canadian.
Okay. Then yeah, that's probably why. But I'm not 100% sure.
I want to say Maryville, but I'm going to look that up.
So any other questions? I could totally go on about Supernatural. It's kind of appropriate, but more questions I'll
I'm
answer.
amazed that you managed to get through 10 seasons in like 3 months. That's a feat.
So what happened was I got sick at the beginning of August. I got sick, and I was on vacation when I got sick. It was like the 3 weeks I had off between like the end of my summer job and the start of school. So I basically spent the entire week I was at the shore, locked in a bedroom, in bed, in my pajamas, watching all of season 5. And it was totally worth it because season 5 is by far the best season of all of them. Like,
well, season 5 is first ending.
Yeah, exactly. It was so good. And I have no regrets about staying inside because I don't really like the beach, but it's like, this season is so good.
Is that the one that has the Groundhog's Day episode?
Uh,
The one where Sam keeps dying.
Dean, yeah, that's a great
Dean
one.
keeps dying. Yeah.
That's another really good one. Oh, and it got to the point where like they started like it was serious and it was dramatic, and then it just turned into a death montage. Like that's where it was. I got it. I was like, it's good.
Yeah, no, that one is super well shot. Like I love just like when it gets to the death montage and it's just like here's a chunk of Sam trying to keep Dean alive, and then just Dean reacting to something, and you usually don't even see the death, but then it just cuts back to the radio playing a song.
Yeah, it was good. And then
there was also the black and white episode. That was a funny episode that I liked, and it was from one of the later seasons. I want to say season 8.
Yeah, that was a good one too. That's the one where it's they do all the monster homages, right?
Yeah,
that was a good one. I don't know, Ash Saber. Like season 5 was really good, but I don't necessarily think that Supernatural hasn't been able to live up to itself. I liked seasons 8 and 9, and I really like 6 too. 7 is the only one I hated. Like 7 is I literally had to force myself through season 7. Is that
Sam comes back from hell?
No, that's the Leviathans.
Okay.
I didn't care for that one. The person they chose to kill that season halfway through, I felt was too important to the show's chemistry, and it suffered a lot from that character not being there, if you know who
right. But that character also, like, I'll agree with you. I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say that character was killed off because they had become too important for the show without them being part of the original formula.
I would have rather seen Cass stay dead than lose that character personally. I like Cass. I think that the only reason Cass came back was because he has a fangirl following.
They all have fangirl followings.
I don't think the character
Those are
I'm
some pretty men. All right, maybe not. Well, anyway, I don't want to spoil who that character is. So
yeah, me either.
Not that being dead has ever been a life sentence in this show's casts.
Yeah, I'd like some permanent not. The thing is like if they were to permanently not dead this character, like they couldn't just walk away from it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I need to stop vague booking now.
Yep. And that's us spoiling Supernatural without intending.
Oh, dude,
Everyone.
we should do that. It could be like No Direction Supernatural edition. It can be like Ryan's G.I. Joe episode, except all of us go geek on Supernatural.
G.I. Joe has exactly one spoiler worth mentioning, and we didn't. No, we did totally mention it. 20-year-old spoilers don't count.
That's true.
I mean, the timing is right for that, it being Occult October. We've
could.
got other plans for next episode, but we might be able to finagle something.
Nah, we don't have to. It's fine. I'm already doing
but I like the idea.
Yeah, I'm doing a fanfare third-party product with like classes inspired by Supernatural. Like I wrote a Possessed by an Outsider class for it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh, Jacob Blackman wants to know if somebody killed Duke. No, it's okay. He just was in a coma.
Are they doing another G.I. Joe movie or something? I heard the last 3 were really bad.
There's only been 2. This would be the third one. There's a poster that's been posted for it, which is just the Urashikage logo. And all signs point to yes, but there's no cast announced. There's no story announced or a writer, I don't believe. And I don't think they've announced a director, only saying that John Woo wouldn't come back.
That's because they're waiting for you to learn how to write scripts so that you can direct it, Ryan.
I've been writing scripts for years. I've got ideas for a G.I. Joe movie, but I don't know if I can do a third G.I. You know what? I think I
call it a reboot.
You couldn't mess it up any worse.
That's fair.
They had robot suits in the first one, Ryan.
Yeah. Oh no, the first one was terrible. The second one had so much potential, though.
And at least the cartoon waited to have the robot suits till the last.
Yeah, but come on,
Did
like
you
they had
guys-
fatal fluffies from the second year. Like the cartoon was always absurd.
Yeah. Did you guys, including the audience, see the thing that Legendary just announced that they're turning Godzilla and King Kong into a franchise?
Yeah, but they also announced that they were going to do a Godzilla versus Pacific Rim like mega franchise thing, and that fell through pretty quickly. So I don't really have a lot of faith in this.
That's true.
Not a lot of people like that Godzilla movie did okay, but it didn't like have major cultural impact.
You're right.
And
It didn't.
some people even forget that there was a Godzilla movie a couple of years ago.
Right. And legendary
really like
movies
that
are
movie.
like almost always like D-list movies.
Oh, I
Which is
really
a little
like
bit
that.
distressing because I think Legendary won the bid on Name of the Wind.
Aren't they? Are they the ones who are doing the Warcraft movie too? Or is that
Yep.
someone else?
That's
Huh.
them. Oh boy.
Everybody's set.
But here, nothing they could do could be worse than those novels.
Yeah, there's a lot of really bad World of Warcraft novels.
Mm-hmm.
I like the ones written by Christine Golding, but like the
Oh my
Knack
gosh.
ones. Did I sugar a rant?
Oh man. Okay, she's the better of the two horrible novelists involved in that series, and I don't know if I can blame her or the fact that this crazy lore they want to take seriously.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of problems with that in terms of just the storytelling. Blizzard has never really been good at telling a story, though. Like I have Diablo 3, and I really tried to take it seriously, and I couldn't. Maybe I'm the only person, but.
By the way, guys, it's after 8:30, so let's give this another 2 minutes, and then we will move on to the episode.
Is it after 8:30? I have 8:28
Yeah.
on the notes.
I have
I have
8:33.
8:33.
All right, we'll give it 5 minutes just so that everyone's after 8:30.
Twitch
Oh
says
no,
it's 8:33.
my phone says it's 8:33, so apparently something's up with my.
Okay, well then back to 2 minutes. Ash Saber says Kotaku had an article ranking all 132 G.I. Joes or something. It was actually 163, and it was IO9. And the article was unfortunate.
Oh my god.
Oh
Like,
my goodness.
Ryan not only knows what the article he's referencing is, but also correcting the number.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Like that.
This seems personal, Ryan. Do you need to talk about it?
So here's the problem with this article. Now, there's no way anyone could objectively rank 163 members of G.I. Joe. Like, expecting an actual, like, valid list, that's... I wasn't expecting that. That would be too much. But it was, like, a tiny bit snarky without being like, oh, this is a good article. This is an article full of good snark. And it very rarely even tried to justify things. So, like, Barbecue was number 10 G.I. Joe character of all time, according to this list. And I mean, I like Barbecue. He's got a cool look. But really, the only top 10 list he should be in is listing the Joes alphabetically. And then there's stuff like Flint is 15. Now those are fighting words, and they decide not to validate this at all. Like, Flint is he's only the second character that's listed that has no paragraph explaining who he is or why he was ranked there.
Maybe they were just running out of people.
No. He was 15th. There's plenty more Joes after that.
Do you think they just
They
put
rank-
them in like a randomized function and just tried to come up with reasons
Maybe.
people were where they were?
Well, they invent these top X lists just to get us to have these angry nerd conversations and
It's
share
true.
it around. I mean, it's the freaking IGN just released like a top 100 video games of all time, and it includes Dark Souls 4 times in the list. I mean, so
Like
whatever.
The same iteration of the game?
No, it's like Dark
for
Souls,
PS3.
Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne. It's like, this is all the same game.
Did they do Dark Souls for PlayStation 3? Dark Souls for Xbox 360?
No, but God, I would be not surprised if they did.
The real question, how many versions of The Sims made it to the list?
Only one, because they said like a series would only get one, but then they argued that those weren't really the same series because of reasons.
That seems silly.
Dark Souls is awesome. I've got like hundreds of hours in it, chat. Don't worry about that. But it's not awesome 4 times.
Poor laughing rogue, you made him cry. I didn't even know we had emoticons in
Oh my
our
god,
chat.
that is the most adorable emoticon I've ever seen.
Dude, you just like made the rogue break stealth to tell you how sad he is. Poor
Ready to
rogue.
start this episode officially, guys?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody
Aaron,
go
you wanna-
silent. Silence
Okay.
means no typing or noises or scratches. And then I ban Ryan. Alright, guys. We're going to logo.
Thank you.
And we're back.
Welcome to No Direction, the Pathfinder News, Reviews, and Interviews podcast. I am your host, Ryan Costello.
And I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Baron.
As promised, we are going to be giving Occult Adventures, the latest hardcover from the Pathfinder role-playing game line from Paizo, a mega review. We're going to give the first half of this episode all dedicated to Occult Adventures. And to make sure that we cover all the bases from all the angles, we are also inviting a couple of Pathfinder specialists to the podcast. Joining us, the hosts of the Private Sanctuary podcast, Mr. Alex Agunas. Welcome, Alex.
Hi.
And Mr. Anthony Lee, the man behind the screens. Welcome, Alex. Welcome, Anthony.
Hello, I can also be Alex.
Hi,
We're welcoming Alex
again.
twice, and you never, Anthony.
No, I never get mentioned.
That's not true.
I know it's not.
No, it's not. We can't even joke about that.
Don't mind me while I pick up all the notes I just dropped on the ground.
Yep.
You have paper notes.
Of course I have paper notes.
Then what's this
What else do
little
we do reviews?
Google Doc thing you sent me?
The Google Docs is just the outline. These are my personal
Did you
notes.
send me the fake notes?
Yes.
He didn't want you to know anything he was going to say, so you couldn't
So
rip his better
betrayed.
material.
How come I didn't get the Google outline, right?
What do you mean you didn't get the Google outline? Oh, I shared the link in the No Direction. Do you have it, Param, right now?
No.
All
Tonight
right.
on
I'm
the
going
hot
to
seat.
reshare it in our Facebook thread.
I just assumed we were winging it, because we talked about it. It's like, okay, Occult Adventures, let's go!
All right, Param, if you go onto Facebook right now, you can click on the link there that I just sent you.
Dear listeners, we know what we're doing. We promise.
Yeah.
But it's going to be an exciting episode because this is probably one of the most... How am I going to put this? This is the most
Anticipated?
different book
Ah.
Paizo has released. This is not just a book with character options. This is almost a genre-defining book, as the title reads. Like, this
Yeah.
introduces an entire alternate style of playing Pathfinder.
I would say that this book is going to be probably as much of an impact as the Advanced Player's Guide was several years ago. I think it's a huge deal for the way people can play Pathfinder.
Now, I'm going to say that it maybe almost shouldn't be as big a deal as the Advanced Player's Guide, because the Advanced Player's Guide really is a significant book in the history of Pathfinder and in it establishing itself as something other than 3.75. Occult Adventures feels like it should be a splinter book. It should be like the Psionics Handbook from 3.5. And yet it is such a good book that I think
Yep.
it is going to influence the game in a major way.
Especially since what we know about their plans for next year and how this book is going to be a major influencer in the adventure paths released over the next year. Not so much Hell's Rebels, but certainly in Hell's Vengeance and most assuredly in Strange Aeons, the H.P. Lovecraft-inspired adventure path that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, to me, Occult Adventures is refining what Mythic Adventures did. Like, Mythic Adventures kind of set the stage of, let's have this book be around this theme of storytelling. And Mythic Adventures has its ups and downs, but Occult Adventures really takes that concept and perfects it. And there are so many different ways that we're going to talk about that really hit that on the head.
I think we can start there, actually, because this is only the second Adventures book in the Adventures subline. Like, the RPG line tends to reuse a lot of words, and sometimes we make connections between those. Sometimes they just aren't there. But Occult Adventures and Mythic Adventures are the only two Adventures books. Mythic is a binary option. It's either the entire campaign is running with the Mythic rules, or if only a couple of people are using it, the campaign is off balance. Occult Adventures is cool because you can have the entire campaign based around it, and it's like a Justice League Dark type of campaign. Or you can just have the one occult person, and that works thematically perfect too, because the occult stuff are supposed to be the weird options. They're supposed to be the options that go against the grain of fantasy magic and the Pathfinder magic system. And so just having one or maybe just a couple of members of the party that are like a little bit weird, that's perfect. That's perfectly in line with what Occult Adventures is supposed to be.
And it's interesting you referenced Justice League Dark, because I'm going to make the argument coming relatively early in their review of the classes that this book makes fantasy superheroes better than Mythic Adventures, whose goal was to make fantasy superheroes.
Yes, and I'm also going to make the argument that a lot of these classes, they suffer from having the occult theme because a lot of them have mechanics that are broader than just an occult version of it. And I think that's a good time to go right into the chapter 1, which is the classes. This first chapter makes up a third of the book.
Mm-hmm.
So
and half of it's
kinda
the
like-
first class.
what's that?
So that half of it's the first class.
Yeah, no kidding. So the first class is the kineticist, which is technically like 5 classes in one, and then this is actually a far more complex, more robust class than it was in the playtest. In the playtest, the kineticist was, I would say, the most simple, straightforward one.
Mm-hmm.
But with a combination of them broadening some of the options and some of the class features, and what I'm going to call a vocabulary overload, this class became really heady, really complicated, not the kind of class that a beginner should be playing.
And you're not kidding about, and that's the theme that goes through this book. This book constantly is just throwing brand new term after brand new term, sometimes not defined until 100 pages later. I mean, this is a strap-in, you're going to be here a while book.
Yeah, the Kineticist needs to be read at least. I think it took me 3 or 4 times to figure out the new version in this book. Part of it is that definitions to terms aren't always in logical places. Like the fact that certain wild talents function as spells of a certain level are in one place, but that isn't carried down to the list of wild talents to tell you, to like remind you. So like you're reading, oh, look at these cool powers. Oh, level 5. I could take this at level 5. No, you could take that at level 10. I actually had a couple PFS players who did that, so experience.
The wild talents is very much a major part of the complicated things about the kineticist, to the point that I would recommend most people choose your element and then go onto the PRD or the PFSRD and just like copy and paste all of the wild talents and just delete everything and reorganize it so that you have just like the kineticist wild talents list for your element in a list that's logical for you, because it's almost maddening trying to make sense of the wild talents order.
Yeah, although don't let us fool you with our all that we're saying about like how complicated this class is, because I think the general consensus among the 4 of us is that we really like this class.
Agreed.
Yeah.
This is the only class in the playtest period that I played. I played telekineticist, and I had great fun with it, and there is a lot you can do with any one of the elements that makes the class feel very different, even though at its core it works pretty similar, although the blast mechanics is different based on your element. So right from the core of the, right from the like first part of your class, the first defining class feature you have, choosing your element really defines how you're going to play your character.
Indeed. Anthony, are you a Kineticist now?
No, I had a playtest kineticist for a little while and found it to be a little bit boring. Because, like Ryan said, it was really, really straightforward. It's like, standard action, do your damage. Standard action, do your not damage. And great, I'm done. Whereas the full kineticist, the complete version, is so incredibly nuanced with all of your individual character options. And, like, later on at higher levels, you can start mixing elements until the point where you become the avatar. You become master of all of the elements. I mean, like, that's your capstone, right? But still, like, you eventually get the ability to blend elements, and then when we talk about feats later, you'll get to blend elements with other kineticists.
You get to start blending a lot earlier than your capstone. At 7th level, you get expanded element, and that's where you can choose to either further specialize in the element that you have already chosen, or choose a second one. And so that's where, if you want to build Iceman, 7th level is where you can start. You would have your water and air domains together, or not domains, elements.
I really like that it supports doubling down too. It's like, what am I going to study? I'm going to study more fire, and then it's like your fire now becomes blue hot and does crazy stuff because yes.
You are
Yeah,
now
I
a
agree.
Zula.
Had they just made it that you keep adding elements, I think it would have taken away from the concept that I am the Human Torch. I am just this one element defined. I like the idea that you don't have to be just one element, that you have the option of expanding, but that it's an option.
And we also get one of the first of the very many Easter eggs hidden in this book, where the fire kineticist gets escape artist.
Why is that an Easter egg?
Firestarter. The whole movie's about her escaping by setting people on fire.
Oh, okay.
That's kind of funny. Okay. I have a level 3 kineticist in Pathfinder Society. All right, no, he's level 4 now. He just hit level 4. He is telekineticist. I have a blast with him. In my very first game I played on him,
Blast.
like a kinetic blast. Oh, on my very first game with him, I took the telekinetic finesse talent, which is like you could do all of these skills at range, and I was like, okay, everyone, I want to open that door. Stand back 30 feet, and I just we had a key, so I just threw the key into the lock, and I was like, I use Mage Hand to get it in. It just goes in, boop, and opens. That was a fun way to start the game for people who had no idea what I was doing, because I told them I was a rogue. It's kind of true.
My telekinesis also started with the Mage Hand type ability, because it really does feel like I'm not fulfilling my role as a telekineticist unless I can move things with my mind, not just blast things from across the room.
Yeah. And that's kind of what the elements boil down to with the kineticists. Each one has their own niche of what they're really good at. And most of them blend into different areas. Like Earth is really good at combat maneuvers, so is Aether, but Earth is better at defense, and Aether is better at tricky skills, roguey kind of stuff. All of the elements have this sort of specialty. So when you go into the kineticist trying to figure out what to play, think more about what you want your character to do rather than what you think is optimized, because I've seen people try to optimize min-max the kineticist, and from what I'm told, it takes about 12 hours and a lot of bias. I would say that it has plenty of room for expansion going forward, but it is also a masterfully made class. It's really good.
Yeah.
One question for you, Alex. Go ahead, Farm.
Also, don't just think this is a one-trick pony either. It's not. It's not just blast and cool stuff. If you go water, you can make an effective healer, especially with the archetype.
Definitely.
Now, my question for you, Alex, is there any workable build that doesn't take point-blank shot and precise shot as the first 2 feats?
Yes, but you would need to focus on Kinetic Blade. Kinetic Blade is an option where you basically make melee attacks with your element, and if you made a build that was completely focused around using nothing but Kinetic Blade, you could easily ignore those 2 talents. As a matter of fact, that's what I did for the first few levels. Actually, I don't even have Precise Shot yet. I think I'm level 4. I don't get it till next level. So I was like, I'm going to run up to them and punch them. Since the way telekinesis works with Kinetic Blade is that you take an object and you increase its inertia so that when you hit someone with it, it does more damage than hitting them would normally deal. So I have my character use his telekinesis on his shoes and his gloves, so when he punches people, he's like Ness from Earthbound and just sends them psychically flying because he's punching them with Aether. I just broke all of our hosts, folks.
No,
During
you
the
didn't. Someone in chat did.
Yeah.
Yep.
During
But
the playtest, I had my kineticist was a son of a blacksmith, so he'd fling his kinetic blasts were flinging nails around, just like flicking them, and then people's robots' head would be exploding.
Were you also a telekineticist?
Yeah, it's just sort of that's what drew me.
I would love to see a breakdown of how many people played which element.
There's only one element to play.
Fire?
Oh. So now
I'm sure we can actually ask people at Paizo. I mean, they have the playtest data.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they kept some track of which element was most popular.
I have to assume that
Mark
TK was super popular because, there's not really a good way to do that in this game until now. I mean, you had telekinesis, but it was a high-level spell and not very good at what it did.
Right, you had Mage Hand at 0th level and telekinesis at 6.
Yeah. Congratulations!
There are now 2 or 3 classes that are really good at psychic telekinesis stuff with Occult Adventures now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to move on to medium, but first I do want to point out, or actually I invite Alex to tell us about the iconic kineticist.
It's the game's first young iconic. I'm so happy. Actually, before Occult Adventures was released, I posted in a thread that was what kind of iconics would you want to see? And then I messaged James Jacobs on his thread. I was like, please do this. And I don't think that it was me, but I'm just happy to see that it happened because you need that kind of diversity in the game. There's this idea that if you're, a little kid, you can't adventure, you can't be a hero, but like half of the stories we grow up with are about kid heroes, honestly. And when you're in a game where magic is real and you can have powers just from being born where you were at in life, or if Amiri can swing that gigantic sword that in theory should be impossible to lift, then I see no reason that you can't have a child hero. So I'm happy. I hope that if there's another class after the vigilante, we'll get another one, but it remains to be seen.
I also
So-
their argument that they're trying to get more and more young people into the game, and obviously they've gone by the philosophy that more people get into the game if they can identify with somebody in the game. This has always been a really big hole in things. We're going to go through it as we get to the other iconics, but they fill a lot of the last diversity holes in this book.
They do. Ryan and I have talked about the concept of kids and what they want to play, because Ryan was also in education and I'm in education. And, Ryan made the point like, oh, when I was a kid, I always wanted to think of being an adult. And I think that's true. I think there are a lot of kids who are like, yeah, I want an adult hero because I don't want to think about being, me. I want to be thinking about someone awesome. But I think that for just as many kids, like, there are kids who want to be themselves in a game, and I think that by having Yoon, it just opens the door to more diversity. I think that's a good thing, and not saying that Ryan doesn't, but I just wanted to point out that we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
No, and I agreed with you on that point, that we do need, that it is nice to have that representation.
Yes.
It's also going to open up an entire new marketing door for them with Bear Owl.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe they didn't have Gom Gom plushies ready to go with this book. I am shocked about that.
For anyone that's curious why it's a bear owl and not an owl bear, there are some it's a legally gray area to merchandise things based on creatures in the SRD. And so by making it a bear owl instead of an owl bear, it makes it a little bit easier for them to license it and create a plush exactly like the one that's on the screen right now. So Gom Gom is the character, the plush's name. Bear Owl is technically its race. We all know exactly what it is. It's the minimum they had to do to make it less legally murky.
Mm-hmm. And that's why we have tentacle kitties and...
there might not be owl bears in Tien Sha. For all we know, Yoon has never actually seen an owl bear before. It might just be a bear owl to her.
If there's if there's any place in Pathfinder that needs owl bears, it's Tien Sha.
Maybe. So let's go on to the medium.
We spent a lot of time on the... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
I said let's go on to the medium now.
Thank you. I was going to say we spent a lot of time on the kineticist, which still, like we said, it takes up like half of the class chapter. But
Yeah, like
the medium
proportionally.
goes back to what I said earlier about how the occult theme is a little extraneous for a couple of these classes. The medium is the best generalist in the game. It's actually really Pathfinder, at least first-party Pathfinder's first generalist class. It throws back to the factotum from 3.5 Dungeons & Dragons. It's the class that can be whatever you need it to be that day. And I think this is actually going to be a super popular class in Pathfinder Society, because you never know what your party composition is going to be. And so having a character that could fill any one of those roles at a moment's notice, that I think is going to be very popular. But the idea behind the medium, for those who don't remember, is that you can embody the spirit of great warriors, or not just necessarily warriors, but great heroes, and take on like characteristics of a cleric, a warrior, a magus, anyway, basically any of the mythic paths from Mythic Adventures were recreated as spirits here.
Yes.
Right, which it really helped, because it helped me instantly understand what these things did, because a lot of their abilities are really just mappings or slightly watered down versions of the mythic powers that we've already been playing with, and they're especially fitting. And I was kind of glad to see some of them, because like the martial ones fit some niches that the game wasn't covering until Mythic came out.
I think changing it from Harrow Spirits to the legendary Hero Spirits was a good call for this book, especially considering that with the number of space an average spirit needed, I'm pretty sure the medium would have been over 60 pages long if they kept the original model, which means we would have been talking about the medium as the longest class in the book instead of the kineticist. Um, Usually, when people ask me about the medium, they always bring up the occultist class that I wrote for the Pact Magic series, which is based on a 3.5 class. And I really like how the medium works because it's similar, but it's different. The medium is all about contacting dead people. And the coming from the playtest, a lot of abilities having to do with speaking with the dead and conducting seances were added to this class in addition to the cool spirit powers. So you really ultimately get this class that feels like someone who can talk to the spirits, and not always in the best way possible, mind you, because the medium can be possessed, you can lose influence, you can go crazy, all that good stuff. Not in Pathfinder Society, of course, but in normal gameplay, you can completely lose control of your character. I think that's an interesting area for a class to cover, and I actually really like this one. When we get to archetypes, Medium has some really good archetypes too, but I digress.
And that's a theme that's going to go throughout this entire book. Of here are these interesting character options that are also dangerous for you. The basically the telekinesis can overheat themselves or burn out or however your particular elemental does. This one can get taken over. The other ones have just as many nasty side effects if you try to push it too far.
And it's nice that it is something you have to push, so you have to actively make that choice. And usually there is a save or there is a way of avoiding it. I don't think there is for the kineticist, but there is for the taboo, which is the medium's way of getting a little extra, but taking a penalty for it. So if you choose a taboo, you get a second spirit surge bonus. I forget exactly the terminology. But yeah, if you then go against the taboo, which is tied into your spirit, then you take penalties for it. And I do want to go back to what I was saying, that this is a class that doesn't need the occult flavor that it has. I do want to also say that the flavor in this class is amazing. Actually, the flavor overall in all of these classes is amazing. So even though it may seem unnecessary, they went like full tilt on it and really got it right. It's a very entertaining read, this book, which just adds to the value of the classes and just the entertainment factor of reading through it.
And I sort of disagree with that it doesn't need the flavors, because otherwise it's just filling a mechanical niche, and the flavors on all of these are so strong that I'm honestly not sure I would like to play many of these classes without the occult tie-ins. Now, my one issue with this class is not even the issue with this class. It is that this fills a very specific mechanical niche with a very specific flavor, but another class coming up, the spiritualist, also fills the same roleplay niche.
Disagree. The spiritualist is more of the summoner, whereas this is the factotum. It's like this one
That's
person.
Mechanics. They're both spirit
right.
talkers. I'm like, the spiritualist does like the different mechanical niche, but fills the same RP niche with another person that's talking to dead people.
I agree with you in the context of this book, which is obviously how we need to be judging it, because we're reviewing this book. But I will say that Occult Origins, which is a Paizo player companion, does a really good job of separating the spiritualist from the medium. But in the context of this book, you're right, they're too similar.
To the point that I question why the medium has a spirit and the spiritualist has a phantom.
It has to be just simply so that we don't confuse the two. When we say phantom, we know where it's coming from.
Well, the word spirit is
it's
one
more
of the
confusing
most...
if it was a spiritualist had a spirit and the medium had a phantom.
Well,
because
I'm
constantly accidentally calling the spiritualist ghost companion a spirit because it just seems like the most obvious choice.
The thing with the word spirit in Pathfinder, it's kind of like the word priest, where it means so many different things that it's better to forget about it.
Yeah, I think it was nice because it's a word that doesn't tie directly into undead, and it feels like a non-evil undead, but then it got used often because of that, and it kind of took on its own, not its own meaning, but multiple non-connected meanings.
Yeah, this goes back to what you were saying about this book is just full of vocabulary, and sometimes it stumbles over itself.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that the medium is not only a class but also a size. Psychic is not only a class but the type of magic that all of these characters use. Like, there's a lot of repetition of familiar terms in the game and now new terms used for multiple reasons.
Yeah, like when you refer to the psychic spell list, you have to call it the psychic class spell list. It's pretty funny.
This means we know one of the fall 2016 releases, Pathfinder, Thesaurus Origins.
Can we take thesauruses as animal companions?
If just a glossary of terms would be a wonderful third-party site, or not third-party site, but a fan site, the community site. There we go.
Right. But it's a super flexible class. It can be surprisingly effective for some of the things that it can do. It can access some mechanical features that even specialist dedicated classes don't get to unless you, like I say, go mythic. Like, it can throw out, like, it can do the mythic thing where it's like, hey, you, hit him. And then you do. It's awesome.
My one concern about this class, I said that it would be perfect for Pathfinder Society because you never know what your party's makeup is going to be. My concern is that you would get into a long-term campaign with this class, and suddenly you know the party's makeup, and you'll tend to always be one or maybe two of your spirits. Those will be the ones that you're constantly bopping between, and then you might as well have played a class that's not quite so general.
I think the medium is best when it's played as either the fifth or sixth member of a party, where either you're like the bard, where you are adapting to whatever the party needs, or you have a bard and you're still adapting, like that extra person where you need that person the most. Like, if you're fighting enough battle where it's like, hey, we're going to need another frontline fighter to protect our squishies because we're going up against a rogues guild. Aha, I am channeling the spirit of the king, and now I can protect the spellcasters. Or we need more buffs. Aha, now I can have all of these awesome divine spellcasting buffs. That, just to me, like, it's not going to be like the class you build your party composition around, but it's totally great at accenting almost every party, if that makes sense.
It makes sense. I'm strongly considering playing a medium when my group plays Hell's Rebels, which we're going to do after Rise of the Rune Lords. So we'll see. I'm going to read over the class a couple more times. I do enjoy this class. I enjoy the potential. I just have that one worry.
It's worth noting also it's a 4th level spontaneous spellcasting class. There are no prepared spellcasters in this book.
Which surprised me. I assumed that the difference between the occultist and the psychic would be that one's the spontaneous and one's memorized. But no, like you said, no, psychic magic is apparently always spontaneous. And it's usually intelligence-based spontaneous, which is different from anything we've seen before.
And this one doesn't do it. I was going to bring it up a little later, but they're also almost all the time your psychic spellcasting is also much more limited than any other type of spellcasting going, where you are like hyper focused into a particular subset of spells.
So we'll get into that a little bit more when we get to the spell chapter.
When we get to when we get to the classes that start doing that, yeah.
Okay. Briefly, we'll talk about the iconic, since we talked about the kineticist iconic. Aramis, however you want to pronounce it. He's basically the most Varisian iconic we've ever seen. He's got the star knife. He's a harrower. He's everything that you think about when you think about someone that is of Varisian descent.
Oh man, he's got a Ouija board too.
Yep.
His backstory is really tragic. He's from Ustalav, and basically through a series of horrific events in which one of his brothers usurped the family, heirship, he basically gets thrown in an insane asylum and has to flee for his life using the spirits of all the people his brother has killed.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a pretty, like, it is dark. Like, I'm pretty sure he's not evil, but like with all the bad stuff that's happened to him, you would expect, man. And he's going to be really good to play in horror adventures and strange aeons because he also starts in an insane asylum.
One thing about
Wes wrote his backstory, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Eric and Brandon wrote all of them except for you, which Mark Seifter wrote. Seifter.
Oh, one thing. The one thing that's really interesting about the spiritualist before we leave, or medium. I'm sorry, medium. Before we leave him, is that you don't actually have this. I'm not sure how I feel about this, but you don't have complete control of what options you have access to, because you can only pull in these spirits when you're in one of their favored places. So you're actually going to be limited to your options based on the adventure you're playing.
Which I think
true.
generally you'll be able to find someone in all of the locations. The locations are fairly broad, but it's something that a specific adventure can throw, or a GM can throw for the medium for a loop, and just be like, yeah, you know what? There are no churches. There's no holy ground in this place. So you're just going to have to make do without access to your champion or what's Hierophant.
And that's why you bring the cleric around, to make every place a consecrated place.
But I mean, Param, that's not really very much different than playing a wizard in a long-term campaign, in the sense that, like, if you don't have any downtime and if your GM doesn't throw spellbooks at you, you're pretty sunk.
Yeah, but that's a long-term problem. This thing is more like this is more like favored terrain, but worse off. It's like,
Unfavored
I'm
terrain.
showing up at Pathfinder Society. Where are we at? The desert? Well, that cuts off a lot of my options.
Truth. That's a good
Now we
point.
have the Mesmerist. Mesmerist was kind of pitched as the anti-bard and a major
Can we skip
debuffer.
this class? I don't want
No,
to talk about
what?
this
Oh,
No,
I bet they're all
what?
on that.
Alex, go away.
What?
one. I do
Mesmerist
not
is
care for this
magical.
class. Oh no, I'm sorry. You guys have all been mesmerized by this class. I don't care for it.
Param, you're on the occultist.
Yep. Oops.
You actually did skip the Mesmerist.
Good. Let's talk about the occultist. He's way cooler.
He is, but
No,
have
the
one class
okay,
to cover
Consummate
first.
Liar is wonderful.
Yes.
It's a great class feature. Not only does it add to your bluff, but the fact that it can make all Mesmerists feint specialists. I mean, that's got a lot of really cool multi-classing potential. But it's also just cool on its own that this guy is probably not going to be a great combatant. But if he has to be, well, he can just pull the rug out from under you and then take advantage of you while you're flat-footed. But the Mesmerist tricks, it's such a cool mechanic that it's like, I am giving you a bonus. I'm not necessarily telling you what that bonus is, and I am in control of when that bonus triggers. That is unlike any other buffer we've seen in the game, and it is perfectly in line with the flavor of the class.
Ryan, you called this an anti-bard. I actually thought of it more as an anti-witch.
Interesting.
Because like you're not hexing your opponents, right? You're giving tricks to your allies. But like specific allies, whereas like I would think of an anti-bard as like someone who sang and debuffed like everyone else on the other side with like minor effects. But some of these knacks, some of these tricks are huge. Like they're as big as like Ice Tomb is for the witch.
Do you have one in particular that you think is particularly powerful?
Tip of my tongue. Let's go on and I'll find it.
Okay, cool.
So, Alex, why is this not your favorite class?
So, the mesmerist flavor comes across to me as like the hypnotist, the guy who is on the stage with the pendulum, look into my eyes. That is the flavor that they're going for. And these tricks,
Yeah, look at the iconic.
yes, and these tricks are cheap, super situational, maybe not even ever going to use it abilities. Like half of them, like, okay, if the stars are directly overhead and I'm sitting in a temple to Sarenrae with the fighter over here and we're fighting giant fleas, then I can turn that flea into a smaller flea. That is literally what these tricks are. When I look at this class, I agree with Ryan. I thought it was the anti-bard too, in the sense like, oh, this is the bard that debuffs his enemies, or gives negative effects to them when they attack his allies or whatever. He doesn't give bonuses. He puts conditions on stuff, and like the tricks just are so situational. You have to prep them in advance. You have such a small number of them that you get to do, and I mean, I don't know if it changed from the playtest to now, but in the playtest, they had a time limit. And if you didn't use them in that time limit, they went away and your use was wasted. Like, you couldn't keep more than one trick on multiple people at a time. So it's like, I put my mirror image trick. I spend my action to give that to the fighter. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm attacking the cleric instead. I'm not going to trigger your trick. I do not care for this class mechanic at all.
Well,
So,
they took
Alex,
away
are
the
you
time
not-
limit. They did. It lasts
Okay,
until you
that's-
rest.
Are you not
That
a
is-
fan of contingency?
No.
Because contingency is one of the
Oh
best
man,
spells
I
in the
love
game.
contingency breaks games.
Yeah,
So
and like
contingency is permanent. Like you cast it, and the next time that action goes at any point in history, it triggers. Like these are not permanent; they are
right, but
last
you
a
can
day.
only ever have one contingency up ever.
Okay,
Like,
so
you can be a 20th level epic wizard, and you can only ever have one contingency.
so
Whereas
who
mesmerists
named-
can have multiple small little things that they can trigger, and like a puppet master, they can just sort of make these things happen.
So you go ahead and
it
tell
benefits
me.
someone like it benefits a player who really enjoys trying to like foresee situations. Like if you have a diviner in the party and the diviner's like, well, this, that, and the other thing is going to happen in the next few rooms, and the mesmerist can capitalize on that.
Or, any class in this book. Because they're all diviners.
Right.
So perhaps then maybe that style of play isn't for me. But when I look at this book, I'm like, oh, look, I have to plan all of this stuff in advance. I have to hope I'm right. And I have to hope that my GM isn't going to be, for lack of a better words, a nudge and do all of these negative things to me.
And like
nudge.
Yeah. I mean, like
A jerk? Like
sure, like that's predicated on the fact that your GM is out to get you, which in an ideal situation they're not, right?
Well, I don't think that a class should be designed with a mechanic that is basically that. It's like, oh, I know what you've got now. It's like I don't care for this class. I also don't think the tricks are very good. I disagree with you. If I have to spend an advanced trick slot on an ability that turns an ally into a tiny bird for 1 round, don't care.
That one.
Don't care.
The
I would rather turn the other guy into a tiny bird for 1 round.
No. It's just like your force cage. Your fighter is in a cage and can't get out because his reflex saves are terrible. Well, now the fighter's a tiny bird and gets out of the force cage.
He can't get out of the force cage as a tiny bird.
Bars.
That's the
That's the
force.
force cage, right?
But like, even if that worked, that right there is capitalizing on the thing I don't like. That it is a class of what ifs and maybes and howevers. And
But if you're right, you're so right.
Yeah, and then like, so we haven't talked about the other big class feature, which is the hypnotic stare ability, which is really
before
cool.
we get to that, because I do really want to talk about hypnotic stare, but one of the things that I would do as a GM if I had a mesmerist in the party is that I would never actually ask. I would ask him to tell me who he is using a trick on, but then I would just ask him to like write what the trick is on a cue card, and then just kind of hold it up to his head. And so I don't know what the trigger effect would be, and so I will just be running the campaign normally without this meta knowledge kind of influencing what I am doing, and then he can like bust out the card and be like, "Oh, tricked you."
What I would do it. I would key it with a hero deck and say, have him write down this card equals this for each of his tricks, and then he can just stick it to his head with spit like the game.
Even better.
Or,
Now,
or,
Alex,
or
you
if he
seem to
has
have
a
strong
turban or a funky hat, he could slide it in there.
Alex, you seem to have strong opinions on hypnotic stare.
Oh, I like hypnotic stare. Hypnotic
Oh,
stare.
good.
Like I think hypnotic stare is a great ability. It is cool, and then when it upgrades with bold stares, the bold stares are all awesome. Like for me, I would have liked this class better if instead of focusing on these roguish tricks, if it focused on psychic spellcasting and mesmerizing people and mind affecting stuff. Like to me, these tricks are gimmicks, and I don't care for them.
Well, I mean, then just if you build one, don't focus on the tricks. The tricks are just a nice contingency plan, basically. And there's plenty of ways you can build on the hypnotic stare. There's an entire stare feat, like a feat type.
Tree.
I was surprised when I hit that. I was like, wait, what? This one ability deserves a whole feat line?
Right. No other class in the book, and we'll get to that when we get to the feats, but no other class in the book has its own feat type.
Now, there is one thing I do want to point out for the bold stare that you just brought up, Alex. Psychic Inception is the perfect way to handle this kind of limited class, because technically, if classes or if a target is immune to mind affecting stuff, it really can nerf the mesmerist. So Psychic Inception allows it to affect things like the undead and constructs, things that are immune to mind affecting effects, but they are still better against his effects. It's not just plain old saying, well, now you can affect that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, I think they did it very well.
So you're going to yell at me again, but I don't care for painful stare.
What? Okay, why not?
I don't know. It's just like, so before they announced they were going to add it with what they had, it was a very castery class, and then there's like, oh, look at this ability. It's you give a small damage bonus to an ally or a big damage bonus to you. And I guess I never really thought of the mesmerist as some guy who was going to thwack people, even though a mesmerist with a sword cane man is super appealing to me.
Well, I
It's
mean,
like-
he's a 3/4, 6 caster level. He's about as combat efficient as everything that's a 3/4.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he's up there with an Inquisitor if he really wanted to tangle it up.
Yeah.
And like, Painful Stare is just like, to me, just an upgrade of the Burning Gaze spell. Just like, I'm going to look at you so hard, you're gonna bleed from your nose. Like, how intimidating is that? That's
Actually,
just-
Painful Stare on its own I thought was only okay, but when you add the Bleeding Stare feat or
Right,
Blood
right.
Stare, whatever it is, that's where it really gets messed up. Where just the guy staring at you and you just start bleeding.
Imagine doing that in like a negotiation scene where like you're not actually just displaying any sort of physical threat, but like the guy across the table just starts bleeding from his nose. And just leveraging that. That just so cool. So cool.
Well,
And
the
we can make
little
Alex-
bit of fiction before the feats chapter is
What
all
are we
about
going to make Alex do?
So we can,
is all about Melagaster using his crazy stare, and I think that's one of my favorite little fiction chapters in the whole book.
So what are we making Alex do?
well, we can
What-
make Alex really happy. We can set up like a con game where he gets to. Everybody's playing a young character in a haunted orphanage, and the matron has evil eye and contingencies.
There's a couple
Oh,
of things I want to point out from chat. Ash Saber says Mesmerist is the closest thing we'll get to a Pathfinder Beguiler. Like I said earlier, there's a lot of classes in here that remind me of 3.5 classes. The Beguiler from Player's Handbook 2, very similar in concept to the Mesmerist. Mesmerist mechanically was actually quite different from the Beguiler, which I appreciate. And then Nasphinx, which is Robert Brookes, says that Mesmerist has some great new content in Occult Realms and Occult Origins. Now, I considered reviewing all three of those books for this episode, but we were already pretty stacked for content, so I haven't actually read either of those books yet, but I am looking forward to it, especially if the Mesmerist has cool content, because it's not a class I expected to like, but it's now a class that I would consider playing someday.
I don't think Occult Realms comes out till next month. I don't.
Well, maybe that
think it's-
explains why I haven't read it.
Yeah, Occult Origins is out. I actually like Occult Origins was in my this month's Paizo love box, I guess we'll call it. So, this is
Subscription?
no love box because I got 2 player companions this month. I was so happy. But I digress. Let's move on to the occultist. If no one has anything left to say about the mesmerist.
Yes, iconic. Melagaster. Param, do you want to bring up?
He's my favorite part of this class. I love Melagaster. He's
why do you like
Melagaster.
Well-
Go ahead, Param. Take it.
I don't have a lot to say other than I really wish they would have stuck with Lem's evil brother.
He is Lem's evil brother.
Wait, they
He is. They stuck with it. That's why he's awesome.
they were talking about retconning it, and then I got sad and left. I was like, no, stick with that.
No, that he is like in his story, like he is separated and he's with their mother, and he basically brainwashes the entire house that he's living at into serving him as he starts manifesting his psychic powers. And then Lem shows up and he brainwashes Lem into leaving. But as Lem is leaving, he frees all of the slaves, breaks the mind control on everyone, and takes his mother and runs. And so now Melagaster is like wandering the inner sea, trying to make money in order to keep his lavish lifestyle, but also trying to hunt down Lem to get revenge. Which is why so much of the art in this book is the two of them fighting.
So much? I only remember one piece.
But it's the best piece, so it might as well
Okay.
be so much.
We're going to move on to the occultist, and I'm going to admit that I need help figuring out why the occultist and the psychic after it are cool.
Okay.
It's just not the kind of class that does appeal to me. There's
Go
nothing
ahead,
wrong with the
Anthony.
class.
Oh.
Anthony has an occultist. Go ahead,
The,
Anthony.
the
Go for
occultist
it.
speaks to me on so many different levels. First, I'm a pack rat. Like I enjoy collecting tidbits and bits and pieces of like if I could train the camera on my desk, it's just like littered in all of the junk that I someday might need. And the occultist is all about that. It's just like he's it's the class draws its flavor from finding the mystical and finding the power out of specific pieces of things, history, artifacts, items of significance. Like, this is the skull of the 8th king of the throne of somewhere or the other, and it grants me powers because I can tap into that latent psychic energy left over from said king. But it gives him an excuse to cart around junk, and it's great because, like, I love keeping track of that stuff on my character sheet. Just like that ball of yarn I got, like, the first adventure of first level, great, now it's a mythic ball of yarn and I'm going to use it as, like, my material component for rope trick or whatever. But, like, I wrote down that ball of yarn and, like, I'm gonna remember it, and I don't care if my GM doesn't, I do.
I like that it makes the backstory of the items matter. Like,
Yeah,
suddenly
no,
you
it's
care.
Right. And, like, so mechanically where this grabbed me is, like, so, Param, I have a question for you. Do you sometimes wish, playing a wizard, that you could have access to more than one school's special power?
Yes.
Because, oh boy, with the occultist, can you?
Mm-hmm.
You can have all of the school's power, maybe not all of them, but you can have most of the school's powers, and, like, individually, like, so if you recall, the wizard, right, has each different school of magic has an associated ability with it. Like, the Evocation School gives you a small buff on the damage spells that you do. The Transmutation School gives you a ability score, a physical ability score boost. And individually, they're not great. I mean, like, the appeal of the wizard classes is definitely the magic. But if you suddenly have, like, 3, 4, or 5 of these school abilities, suddenly you're more than just what you are normally. And so, like, the occultist, by dint of just leveling up, gets access to multiple school abilities and just gets to have them. Moreover, he gets to switch which ones he's good at every day. Or rather, which ones he's the best at every day. And so you can really tailor yourself situationally to, like, you know, maybe I need to see, and, like, maybe I absolutely need dark vision today, or maybe I need, like, +6 con today, and you can just sort of go back and forth between these things. On top of that, he's also pretty decent in combat. I mean, once again, he's a 3/4 BAB class,
But with
so he
full
can,
martial weapon abilities.
right, and so he can just, like, get in there and hack and slash with, like, the Magus. Or the Bard, and just be a decent frontliner if he needs to.
So I'm going to stop you right there, Anthony, because I want to iterate on something you just said. I played in Thornkeep, and my group was 4 recurring players for PFS, and our frontline fighter was an occultist, like a playtest occultist. And I know they've toned down a bunch of the abilities I'm about to mention very offhandedly, but basically what he would do is he picked, like, illusion and transmutation. So he had his sword that was always keen. He had see invisibility and blur effects and all these ability score bonuses from the various implements he had. And he basically just ran in and he would, like, slash up stuff. Like, I am talking, like, barbarian level shenanigans with this character. It was fantastic. Like, we would always joke that, like, oh, we need our cultists to get through, and, you know, I played pre-gen Kira through the whole thing just because I could and I wanted to, but it was watching him play this character and pull out all of these crazy things. He's like, well, actually, my sword is the weapon of someone who knows more about the Pathfinder Society. He said it was the weapon of the guy who disappeared. His name begins with an E. Uraeus, you don't even know his name. I'm sorry. He was one of the first Pathfinders. No?
Oh,
Anybody?
yeah.
I know who you're talking about.
Statue Dude.
Statue Dude.
Yeah, Statue Dude. It's Statue Dude. I know that. It's the guy. He's got a statue in the Grand Lodge, and I know this because of reasons Ryan knows. And yes. So it was awesome. He's like, oh yeah, this is all this stuff, and of course it hits harder. It was actually, I'm psychic and I make it better, and I was like, oh, okay. I'm just Kira, right, Saren, right?
Like, so on the surface, the occultist does not look. I mean, first of all, he looks incredibly complicated, and he is, and he also doesn't look very strong. But once you start sort of diving into different implement focuses, so basically wizard schools. Once you start diving into these schools and you sort of see how you can like get a bunch of these, like you can cherry pick your buffs so that you're very, very good at like hitting things in melee, or that you're very, very good at casting these certain types of spells. He's incredibly versatile because he can change these things by the day. And like the kineticist, you can focus on specific implements if you want, or you can branch out to multiple ones. I'm having a ton of fun with so the occultist that I have, we just hit level 5 in Iron Gods, and for a long time I would just tell my party members that I'm just a guy who's good at everything. I'm just good at everything.
Sounds like somebody's scald.
No, the Skald thought he was good at everything, and the dice proved me right. Whereas the occultist was actually good at everything, and the mechanics let me do it. But they just didn't know what I was. Like they were guessing like you're an investigator who uses guns, or you're a rogue with guns. And then like we got into a really hairy situation where we're like being attacked by swarms of like these tiny little things, and nobody had prepared area effect spells. And then suddenly I just like clap my hands together, and this cone of fire shoots out and like just incinerates. And like just what are you? Like, yeah, you'll never know.
Except now they all know because you've said it on live broadcast.
They don't actually watch the show. And
Nobody watches this show, except for a whole lot of people. I
want to point out, Robert Brookes has solved the puzzle. It is Dervin Guest.
Dervin Guest!
It did not begin with an E.
No.
Anthony,
Red herring, Alex.
Are you surprised at this point?
No.
This class
You
also
still say piezo sometimes.
I have gotten better.
True.
Brian told me that I had to improve my percentage chance of saying their company name right if I was going to work with them, and by God, I tried.
There are things like pronunciations I disagree with that I'll let slide because there's no answer to it, but saying piezo right was an important one.
This class also has another one of the Easter eggs in it when it mentions a special necklace from your dead mother. That's because this class is based off of Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files, like almost carbon copy, and so the necklace is a famous implement that he uses.
Yeah. I also enjoy that this character is portly.
Oh yeah, I gotta throw him up on the
Navarro?
screen.
Love
Navarro. Before we knew who he was, people were calling him Fat Valros.
It does look a lot like Valeros. It's nice to get like diversity in body types, but having a very familiar face on a diverse body does not do this character any favors. He doesn't stand out as much as he could if he just did not look exactly like Valeros.
He also has a similar color palette.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yep.
in certain pieces of art, his coat is actually closer to gold yellow than it is to beige, and like he has a sword, sometimes multiple like bladed things because of his implement. Yeah, Fat Valeros.
And
Like,
Valeros also has a whole bunch of stuff hanging off of his belt.
yeah.
Well, this whole character is a justification for Wayne Reynolds' art style.
Yeah.
It's true. It's so
So
good.
I checked Seeker of Secrets. It is not Dervin Guest I'm talking about. It's Eando Klein, this guy. This is who I'm talking about.
All right.
Statue
It wasn't
guy.
E. Yeah, I don't think
No, I
that's
believe
statue
Dervin
guy.
Guest is statue guy.
Yeah. I don't know why I know this guy's name.
Too many famous
it's-
Pathfinders.
Yeah. Goodbye, Pathfinder. Okay. I'm ready. Are we done with the occultist?
We are.
Okay.
Quick
brings us
mention:
to-
you can. The occultist is also really good at magic circles, so it's a great downtime class if you have time to like build magic circles and summon demons, because that's always fun. It also goes along with the theme of like there's always a price for power. Like this is the occultist thing. This is like the sort of sign your soul over thing of like, oh, you want a pet demon? Well, this class gives you one. Eventually, you'll learn true names to demons, but you know that could bite you. Which I'm looking forward to at higher levels. But yeah,
I'm looking forward to being bitten, guys.
That brings us to the Psychic. The Psychic is the only dedicated caster with the 9 spell levels and the only, the wizard progression for the base attack bonus. Who wants to tell me why the Psychic is cool?
Param does.
yeah, I was gonna say, sounds like Param.
Does Param?
Param does. Okay, I'm trying to make him show up, or her show up. Ah, there we go. The psychic.
Now, when this Iconics picture was first shown, most of us theorized that it was the iconic telekineticist, because she's floating and making things float with her mind.
Okay, so why is the psychic cool? Because the psychic is very good at all the broken parts of Pathfinder spellcasting.
So true.
So diplomancy.
Oh, okay, so here's the basic gist of it. What's the psychic good at? Well, she's the epitome of the psychic magic. What is psychic magic? Psychic magic is divination. Psychic magic is teleportation. Psychic magic is summoning. Psychic magic is influencing. So your enchantment spells that mess with people's brains and one. They're also really good at illusions. And you know what the most broken parts of Pathfinder magic are? All that. Plus they get the Witch's Hex knocked on top of that. And then they get special abilities such as Detect Thoughts, Telepathic Bond, Major Amplification. They get this pool of cheater dice, or cheater points that lets them buff up their spells. And then they don't care about being next to people because they don't have somatic components. They don't have verbal components. They don't have any components except for being really ticked off, which is one of the emotional components. And so this class gets to just throw out blast damage when it needs to, buff its spells when it needs to, throw out the most broken spells in the game whenever it wants, and be better at it than any other class is able to pull off of except for hyper-dedicated characters. But this character can then hyper-dedicate onto the top of that and blow them out of the water. So if you wanted to play the sneaky spellcaster, or the subtle spellcaster, or just the plain out most broken spellcaster in Pathfinder, we have a new grand champion.
Now, you were saying that a lot of the classes have limitations and whatnot.
Yeah, she done.
What is the psychics? She doesn't?
She done. I was meant to go back and talk about the occultist, the spiritualist, and to some extent the mesmerist. They all have limits on the spells they're allowed to pick, but based on choices they make. But she is the one that's just like, nope, anything goes.
She's also got a pretty full class feature. Like her class chart has a lot of class features in it. What are some of the highlights there?
My favorite is crap. Let me pull it up here. The Phrenic Pool is pretty much the sort of defining mechanic for this, where she gets this set of pool points that she gets to throw bonuses and buffs under her spells with. It's a very small pool. It's half character level plus caster stat. Also, her caster stat is based on what discipline she is, which is sort of similar to Bloodlines, because the very first one is Abomination. Which gives her bonus spells, tells you what her spellcaster stat is, because guess what? The most broken spellcaster in the game has a flexible spellcaster stat. It can be wisdom or charisma. And some of the things she can get just for being free, she can get damage reduction pretty much whenever she wants it. She can turn into full healer mode. If you want to throw on also healing, she can go that route. She can do pain, which is actually not all that super effective, but it's kind of mean. And she's got hippie form.
She's got hippie form, so like
psychedelia. She gets bonuses and resistances by taking psychedelic substances.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
So is this Pathfinder's Codzilla or Psychzilla? Can she do everything?
She does everything that matters. Oh, and she can single target nuke at an astonishingly deadly amount in with her spell selection. She can single target nuke. The one thing she doesn't have, like the one thing they didn't give her, is she has like almost no area options. Oh, and anything immune to mind affecting is like a trump card against her.
So she doesn't
so there's no way of bypassing that limitation?
She has some spells that will, and she can access some of the telekinesises or throw some summons out, but a lot of her major spell abilities are based off this. Oh, and we were talking about how there was a whole feat type for one class. She's the only class that has an entire new rule of magic dedicated to her.
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair.
So I wanna chime in here. Your discipline doesn't determine your spellcasting stat, because all psychics cast with intelligence. Your discipline determines what ability score your abilities for that particular discipline give you. Because I'm almost positive that all psychics are intelligence based. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. You got me on that one. Correction.
Yeah, it happens. It's like what
It's
70
what
pages of
dedicates her.
classes.
Yeah, it's what determines her phrenic pull and her phrenic abilities, which are the buffs
Yeah,
that
it would.
throw the DCs up, bypasses. She can throw on meta magic spontaneously with this stuff.
Yeah, Tanir is making the same correction in chat right now.
It would kind of be like it would kind of be like if clerics got to pick whether they used intelligence or charisma for channeling and their domain powers. Like that's kind of what that set does. I'm not gonna attempt to disprove Param on any of the spellcasting points because he's absolutely right. It is a ridiculous spell list, and
The
absolutely
best.
ridiculous.
It's the best list. It's the
Yeah,
best.
it's there's I don't even like. On top of that, the psychic gives spell focus divination a reason to exist, which is pretty cool. It has tons of spells that hurt you if you fail your save against a divination spell. Like there's one where you scry. It's an entire series actually. It's an undercast series. You scry on someone's brain so hard that you start to melt it.
That's necromantic, not divination.
No, I thought that was mind thrust. Isn't that you scry on it so hard that their brain melts?
Oh,
That's
never mind. They have multiple break your brain spells.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, it's this class man is nasty. I've only ever seen one in play. Our venture captain, Jeff Fox, played one at a table I was at. He actually played a pain discipline one, and he stylized himself as the Rune Prince of Pain. He was going to be the next Rune Lord, and he was going to be the first Rune Lord to become divination focused, according to him. Because according to his logic, the reason all the other Rune Lords failed was because they didn't have longevity in their thinking. So by being divination, he would rule forever. So he went around, and his favorite thing to do was to hurt people. So he would just constantly use this ability where, like, whenever you hurt someone on your next round, you could spend a use of this ability to make them remember the scars of their pain, and they take non-lethal damage. And he's like, "Remember the pain I caused you." And they go, "Ah!" It was pretty great.
Can anyone tell me anything about the iconic psychic Ravani, actually. Ravani.
She is to Vudra what Erasmus was to Versia.
Fair,
she's
yeah.
old-
I'm quickly
She's
trying to read
very
over her
Vudran.
very long backstory, and
Yeah.
nothing seems to be standing out other than Vudra.
It basically just talks about how she unlocked her powers and how she was sent on a vision quest thing, but it was a corrupt quest because they just wanted to kick her out because she was too strong and prodigal. And she's like, "Oh, I need to learn about everything and everyone." She's like the most. I want to adventure for knowledge. Like if she has a thing that makes her unique among Pathfinder's iconics, it's her motivation. She wasn't kicked out because, her parents died or some tragedy. She just wants to learn everything.
Oh.
Which honestly, as a psychic, you'd think she could do from the comfort of Vudra, but whatever.
Okay, Taneri points out a thing. Don't forget mind swap. Mind swap. I can trade my brain with you temporarily or permanently or with something we captured, so I have a second fallback body. Also, she has a series of spells that she can access at higher level where, okay, now I have a second body and now I can do actions through both bodies, or now I'm going to have a fallback clone. I can have a save state. They introduced a save button in Pathfinder. It's her spell.
I assumed you were saving that for magic, honestly.
Well, but since he brought up why this one was broke, and if otherwise, magic is just going to say this is why the psychic's broke, and the only reason she isn't a prepared spellcaster is that would be too much, because prepared spellcasters are superior to spontaneous spellcasters.
Bastille yells in chat, "Freaky Friday."
Yeah,
Ravani and Lindsay Lohan.
yeah.
Moving on to the spiritualists.
Yeah, do we have any more steam left after all these like screaming matches?
Oh my gosh.
Well, actually, Param, you really pulled the. You really hurt my enthusiasm for the spiritualist, or just I find myself at a loss for what to say other than that it's the summoner
I love
with
the spiritualist, though.
medium's flavor.
Yeah, the
It's
spiritualist
great.
is
It
awesome.
works
What are you
super
talking
well.
about?
But that's
I've got
it.
one
That's
of
the
my
class.
main
But
group right
you
now.
got it right. That's the two sentences you need to say. It's the summoner with the summoner stuff. Also, but it's the medium's flavor. You're absolutely dead on right. That's the class.
Anthony, why do you look so like?
Yeah, you're reclining a little too much there, Anthony.
Do you have nothing to say about? Do you have nothing to say about this one?
No, I really enjoy the spiritual. I mean, so usually where I start with classes is the iconics. And the iconic spiritualist, and I know we've been tackling this at the end, but the iconic spiritualist.
You know what? There's not much more to say about the
good.
class, so we might as well get to it.
She's a hag. She's super old and she's super crippled, but the thing behind her is terrifying. Moreover, the thing behind her is, correct me if I'm wrong, the ghost of her dead husband.
Yeah, that's
correct.
She may have murdered,
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, right, and it's
She didn't murder him. He died in the Goblin Blood Wars.
She may have had. Oh, I thought she had some part in his death.
No, it's highly. I thought it was highly implied that he was devotion and that he came back to her as a ghost. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Oh,
Maybe
man,
that
it's-
at one point he was supposed to have been. She was supposed to have been involved in his murder. Maybe it's changed since it actually got published.
I really
I
like.
take it back. I'm sorry, Estra. I did not mean to question your integrity.
She has one of the best lines in the flavor paragraphs. I was looking for it real quick, trying to pull it up on screen, but I can't find it. But one of the other classes like collapsing the ceiling and she like asking her to take care of the monsters. And she's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. My hubby's always good at taking out the rubbish."
Yeah. Yeah, she's awesome. I actually, when the Spiritualist first came out in the playtest, I did not like it because it was basically a carbon copy summoner. But in the final iteration, it has all of these really cool, like, talk to ghost and ghosty spell abilities. Like, it basically replaces all of those crazy combat abilities with just awesome seance-y stuff. Like, if anything, to me, the medium is the fraud. Like, I mean, there's a rogue archetype that's a better fraud, but the medium is the fraud medium, and the spiritualist is like the real medium. Like, and I know that's weird, but also chiming in with what Param said about the psychic, the spiritualist has a really good spell list. Like, it's not medium level broken, but when you are first of all, she's the only wisdom based spellcasting class for psychic magic. And additionally, she gets like all of these crazy spells that you would normally associate with clerics. In a way, she's almost like the psychic cleric, except with a 6th level spell class and a ghost minion.
And starts with dark vision because that's a cool thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, completely random tangent, but freaking dark vision's
Yeah.
so powerful, and she starts with it.
Yeah. Her phantom has different abilities based upon the emotion that it felt when it died. So those emotions are mostly negative ones. There's like anger, there's hatred. Zeal is one of the more neutral ones. The only really good emotion I've already mentioned is devotion. And then each of those emotions grant different powers and abilities to the spiritualist while she is summoning her phantom. And then the spiritualist can have the phantom inside her brain, and if it's in her brain, she gets skill focused with 2 skills, and then she can manifest it as an incorporeal monster. I actually played an adventure where one of our players used his phantom to go through the wall into the next room, and we got to see the final boss before we actually fought them, so we knew that the boss was there. The spiritualist also has, has an ability where. Okay, it's not really an ability, but I'm treading into anecdote territory now, so I'm gonna go guns blazing. We have a spiritualist at our PFS who he's a halfling, and he has this ability where his phantom is like a fraction of his personality, and he put the Weeby Goblin's boon on it, so he manifests his phantom as Chuffy. And Chuffy runs around, he's hatred, and I guess like he says that Chuffy died at the end of Weeby Goblins, because apparently the first one is really fatal to the goblin characters. And I've never played the first one, I played the other 2. And so Chuffy just runs around screaming about how much he hates everything. I hate that healing spell. I hate heroism. I hate those sturges. Oh, it's really funny. The spiritualist could be a really creepy, scary class, but they can also be hilarious if you want to make them hilarious.
When I was reading through this one and like got to the emotion levels, I was like, I couldn't help it. I just immediately was like, okay, all these phantoms I'm visualizing as just the ghost of Winnie the Pooh characters. I got to like despair, and it was Eeyore, and he was like, "Thanks for summoning me."
Christopher Robin is the most powerful spiritualist in Valerian. He has all of the emotional phantoms.
Oh, okay. Hey, Ryan, did you see that Grey Wolf corrected us in chat? He says that Estra convinced her husband to go investigate the precursor attacks to the Goblin Blood Wars, and he dies as a result. So even though it wasn't, she didn't want him to die, she blames herself for his death.
So I must have misunderstood. I remember it being that she was a little bit more nefarious, but no, she was completely honorable in her intentions, and I like her a little bit more now because of it.
Oh,
We've got
nice.
a lot of morally gray iconics. It's nice to have one that just is sincere and, remorseful.
She could have been cool
Yeah.
going all arsenic and old lace on it.
I think
Either way.
I think part of her backstory is that she herself doesn't know what emotion her phantom is, whether it's like, whether he's devoted to her or whether it's like remorse or sorrow or what's keeping him tied to her, which is kind of cool and creepy.
And
Now, we are at an hour and 15 minutes of our 1 hour review, and we've just finished the book now.
I
So-
told you that wasn't going to happen.
There are a couple
You're
of
the
things that
only
I
one
think we
who
can be a
thought this
little
could
bit
happen.
quicker through. I will point out that there are racial favored class options. We don't have to go into them.
No, we don't.
I will only point out that I appreciate that they exist.
So this book has a lot of archetypes. What if we just pick like 2 or 3 each that we like and talk about them, and that way we don't go over all of them?
I only got
Okay,
the one.
well, I'll
I
just
like.
do a brief breakdown of some of the math then, because there's 4 pages per new class, and then a series of pages for what's just called other classes. And every new class gets between 4 and 6. Actually, the spiritualist is the only one that gets 6 archetypes. Everyone else either gets 4 or 5 new archetypes. I have a kineticist one that stands out. I like the blood kineticist. The blood kineticist is
Bloodbender.
basically a water kineticist that kind of manipulates you like a crazy blood puppet.
Like, how is this not Avatar? This is totally Avatar.
It's
I don't
Amon.
think there's any they're
no-
not disguising the fact that
No,
it's
it's
Avatar.
not. Flip
The-
a few more pages. It's Avatar.
The art, the thing is like the art is of a I can't think of the Pathfinder version of the race, but it's basically an Inuit woman wearing brown versions of the tribal waterbender clothing, bending blood. Like I'm like there was no attempt to disguise the fact that this is Avatar themed, like
Well,
none, and it's beautiful.
That's Tai Chi stance. Like, just very. I love it. It's so good.
My
All right,
favorite.
so-
Anything else stand out in the kineticist, or can we move on to the medium archetypes?
Let's
We
go.
can move on.
I like these. I like the mediums.
Mediums
All
are
right,
good.
what can you tell us about the medium archetypes, Graham?
Okay, for the one that's my first, you've got the Kami medium, which takes the whole medium thing, throws it out, and says we're going to play Mushishi.
Yeah.
Don't understand the reference.
Mushishi's an anime about this. Basically, this character is this like Japanese sage-like dude that goes through and like talks to the natural spirits of and then gets them to either stop being crazy or do what he needs or help people. And it's very deep and retrospective and moody and very well done and kind of cool. And it's neat that hey, we've got a character here that is also not inherently violent and has access to a lot of things. And it's neat that they kind of add this whole flavor and completely reskins the entire class
Yeah.
to throw this on it because it's no longer has anything to do with the occult stuff again once you do that. And then the other one is actually my favorite archetype in the whole book, and it's 3 animated because this time we're going to play this we're going to just play the ghost. It's like this could have been cool at the spiritualist level, but I think it kind of works for the medium. But it's like you're playing the medium, but you're the ghost, and you're
It feels like
possessing
death
your old
becomes
body.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would have honestly liked it if they didn't marry it to your old body. You just possessing
Oh, okay.
an old body.
I like the storyteller.
I liked the flavor of that one. Was there any mechanics that stood out, or do you agree that it's just a really cool flavor?
It's just the flavor, but I do like the fact that it presents this as an option. It's like, and actually, you can just throw this out if like any character dies, they can just switch over to this.
How about
Yeah,
the
that
mesmerist? Anyone got a particularly favorite mesmerist archetype?
The Vexing Duelist is cool. It's
What
a class.
name. Vexing Daredevil.
Yeah, Vexing Daredevil. It's basically a class that trades a lot of the more like spellcastery abilities for faint focused fighting. I wouldn't put it in my top 5 favorite in this book just because I think the bold stares are better than the ability that are traded for them personally, especially because one of them is the ability to affect undead and other things that are immune to mind affecting abilities with mind affecting abilities, and faint is technically sometimes considered one. So in some circles, oh, I can't faint the undead even though it's stimulus response because it's a mind affecting thing. Well, that would have been nice to keep, but I just think it's cool. It's awesome.
Moving on to the occultist. Anthony, I feel like you'll have at least one of these that you like.
So I latched onto these for flavor more than I did for their actual mechanics, but the battle host is it's like, it gives people who like to talk about their swords a reason to talk about their swords. Like, just...
You mean for 9 minutes in a 6-second round?
Right, exactly. And then when they finally strike with it, they crit, obviously. Also, the Tome Eater is hilarious because it's just like...
The art is absurd. It's
so
one of the
good.
most standout pieces of art in the whole book.
I love it. I love it.
It's the closest thing we get to a prepared spellcaster.
These words are magic. I'm gonna eat them. Now I'm magic. It's like literally you are what you eat.
It seems like an awesome heretical goblin archetype.
Yeah, no, totally. Totally, so good.
I actually talked with Eric at Gen Con about it, and he said originally they wanted to order a piece of art that had nothing to do with the occultist. It was just the Urzin, the iconic wizard, holding his spell book with a big bite mark in it, crying.
Grey Wolf says he likes the Shire, which is the genie-focused occultist. Anyone have any feelings about that?
Yeah,
All right.
genies.
It's genies.
Yeah,
I
genies.
haven't dabbled a lot with genie flavored in my game, so...
Then there's the psychic.
Oh, well...
Aram, you... Yeah?
Okay, the Amnesiac lets you kind of halfway be a prepared spellcaster, but it's not really
I
worth
like
it.
the flavor of the Amnesiac.
It's a great flavor, but the mechanics... The reason I don't like it is because the mechanics are very complicated and will slow the game session down on a class that's already going to be complicated and slow the game session down.
Yeah.
Also,
Honestly, the psychic archetypes...
It's a
go ahead.
great flavor, but it's also like you're going to be a special snowflake in the party, and so you've got to work with your GM and your party to say, "Hey guys, I want to play this very, very well done concept, and like we're going to do it right, and I'm going to have lots of special role playing attention." And sometimes you can get away with that, sometimes you can't.
And how about the spiritualist?
I like the On My OG.
Okay, what about it?
So the On My OG is like, this book is filled with references to Eastern magic lore. The On My OG is basically a spiritualist that, in order to cast her spells, she has to first create paper scrolls, and her spells are really difficult to dispel unless you get her paper scroll and rip it up, in which case the spell is automatically dispelled. It's not the best archetype in the world. It's not really a power up or a power down. It's just really cool to think like, aha, here's my scroll. It's a scroll of heroism. I stick it on you, friend, and now you have the benefits of heroism. Boom, boom, I put scrolls on everybody.
Right, it's a classic Asian mythology archetype, and this is also a ground they've done before with
the paper wizard from
the Fly Scrolls.
Magic.
The Fly Scrolls, which were from not from Ultimate Magic first, they were from Master of Devils first.
Oh,
mean the
sure,
Riffle
mechanically
Scrolls?
speaking.
Yeah, the Fly Scrolls were the version of the Riffle Scrolls.
Oh, right,
yeah.
in Master of Devils, right.
Mm-hmm.
Then we've got the other class archetypes. So it's interesting how they handled this chapter because it is about 20 pages, and it seems kind of arbitrary how they chose which classes would get archetypes. I guess it was basically just concept first and not worry about making sure every class gets representation. So, for example, there's at least 3 options for the alchemist, which I suppose that works. It's kind of like instead of juicing your magical aura, you're juicing your psychic aura. It's just not one of the classes that I would have associated with psychic magic. We've got the Flesh Eater Barbarian, which is just bizarre.
Okay, so take that thought. This is the character who eats your heart to gain your powers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what this archetype is.
There's a rage power in, I forget which book it is, but it's basically Heart Ripper, and then there's an advanced rage power where you then eat the heart and get bonuses. That works out very well for the Flesh Eater, who gains bonuses based on the last thing he ate, which has to be, where is the list?
It's one of like the beast shape spells or something like that.
Yeah, it has to be a dead animal, dragon, humanoid, or magical beast.
Yum.
Yeah.
I eat your heart and I gain your powers, folks.
That might be a really good archetype for Hell's Vengeance.
Okay.
You're already an evil character, right? So,
Yes.
Well, then
So
you
you
can
were
even,
some kind
then
of
you can play it up and
semi-cannibal.
go all Hannibal on it, and just like fine dining,
Mhm.
well lit restaurant.
Hannibal is a barbarian, though.
You are Chelish, right? So you could sort of swing both ways because like Hannibal did have his moments of absolute like uncontrollable anger. They were few and far between, but they happened.
So does that
Gentleman
mean
Owl
that,
says,
like-
fueled by tiger blood.
So does that mean
Sir.
like if you wanted to like keep your abilities for eating a piece of dragon, like you wouldn't be able to eat any other meat, like period? Because like, what if your GM is like, you eat chicken for dinner that night? Okay, now you have the powers of a chicken. Like that's
Quack.
Well, I
I
mean,
mean-
it's still based on beast shape, so chickens have wings. You could technically get a fly speed, sort of. These aren't the best flyers, but
you might.
Does that
get low
incentivize
light.
you to carry around dragon jerky?
yes and yes. We've got a surprising number of Cavalier options, 2 Cavalier orders, and the Ghost Rider archetype.
That order of the, I think it's called the Order of the North Star, right? Is that what it is?
Eastern.
Or is
Eastern.
it Eastern Star. That order is one of the best Cavalier orders they've ever come up with. Like, for one-handed melee characters who use combat expertise, it's ridiculous specific, yes. It is fantastic. Like, there has never been an option in the game that has actually buffed combat expertise itself. And that order does a really good job. Like, if you are playing the Daring Cavalier, the Daring Champion from the Advanced Class Guide, you probably want this archetype because it is so good for you. So good for you.
And then if you're playing a Ghost Rider, I recommend taking a level dip into Kineticist, get your Pyrokineticist on, and then, yeah, you are a flaming ghost horse riding Cavalier.
Named Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
No.
Yes, folks, I went there. All right.
The Sensati Fighter archetype is an archetype I enjoy. It's a slightly more thoughtful and evasive fighter. I have no idea why it's in this book. There is very little psychic
There was
or
a-
occult in this.
There was a TV show that made the Sensati mythos look a lot more psychic. I think it's directly inspired by that TV show. It's like a Netflix original or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's more about heightened awareness rather than true psychic power. But hey, if the cannibal barbarian can be in this book, then why not the Sensati?
We've got 2, I thought, really cool Magus archetypes. The Esoteric is a surprising Magus archetype because it kind of turns you into a monk Magus. It makes you specialize in unarmed strikes and gives you a key arcana pool, which lets you use monk abilities. It actually could use a little clarifying which key powers you actually get, but it's another archetype that it's like, where's the occult in this?
Yes.
Whereas the Mind Blade is flat out Psylocke. You get psychic powers, you become a spontaneous Magus, which, is this the first spontaneous Magus archetype?
Second.
Second.
Okay, I would have been surprised if it was the only one.
Class guide.
First one was Anthony's archetype.
In
Django.
Emerald Spire, if we ever get back to it.
The
Alex, the TV show you were talking about was Sense 8, which apparently is how that archetype is pronounced. It's not Sensati, it's Sense 8.
Okay.
I should go watch that.
The Mind Blade is also one of the classes that isn't here because of its occulty. It's here because of the psychic-y. Technically we need some options in here for the people that actually did like 3.5 psionics and didn't go to Dreams Guard.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, it
basically
is
the
totally
Mind
the
Blade,
side
the
blade.
Soul Knife.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's what
Soul
it
Knife,
is.
sorry.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think that's it as far as the highlights for me. The Ectoplasm Sorcerer Bloodline was a little bit fun, but it's also very reminiscent of the Aberrant Bloodline already.
Yeah.
Can
the
I
psychic,
go
I like
nerdy
the
now?
Psychic Sorcerer.
Please
I
do
like the
go
idea of
nerd.
the Psychic Sorcerer.
Oh my gosh. The Psychic Investigator. Oh my gosh. The Psychic Investigator. This is like my favorite archetype like ever. Like it is up there
Wow.
with War Warden for me. Like it is tied with Lore Warden. So the Psychic Investigator takes everything I was like about with the Investigator, which is all the alchemy stuff, and replaces it with the Psychic spell list. It's the War Priest. What the War Priest is to clerics for the Psychic list. They can pick up to 6 level spells from what is the most ridiculous spell list in the game. They trade their first Investigator talent for 1 amplification, Phoranic amplification ability, and they could spend more talents to get more. Like they have a lower pool, sure, but they have all of the awesome, like crazy different psychic undercasting abilities. They can undercast like a psychic can, and on top of all of that, it doesn't trade any of the trap finding. It doesn't trade in inspiration. It has access to pretty much every other talent they have. It has still its keen recollection. It's fantastic. Like it is like. It is so good, and like on top of that, it gets like find traps as a first level spell with having trap finding. I can't even like I'm sorry, I can't even.
So what you're saying is it's all right.
It's gonna be my next PFS character. Like number
cool.
9 is gonna be a psychic detective.
It's a reason
I was kind of
investigator
wrapping
needed
up,
to be
but
in
I
this
do
book.
want to bring attention to the Leyline Guardian, which is a witch archetype, mostly because witches get very few archetypes just because they've only got the 2 class features, the familiar and hexes. And this one actually gives up the familiar to gain psychic spells, excuse me, making it a spontaneous witch, which, again, is there another spontaneous witch out there already?
No, this is the first.
Which is cool because witches. I would have assumed the witch would have been a spontaneous caster from the beginning, so getting this as that option for witches is pretty cool. And Conduit Surge is a fairly straightforward class feature, but it's appreciated. It basically gives you the chance to boost up some of your spells at the risk of, knocking yourself unconscious, making yourself staggered. So with only 2 class features, it completely changes the flavor of the witch and puts it very much in line with a lot of the mechanics and a lot of the limitations that Perrin was talking about with the psychic classes.
Yes.
Feats.
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 Go ahead, Anthony.
I have 2 of them. Feat chapter is pretty small. It's also pretty straightforward. They add, like we mentioned before, a new type of feat, which are the stare feats, specifically for the mesmerist. There's a few metamagic feats as well, and 1 teamwork feat. The rest are, the teamwork feat is so that 2 kineticists can combine their powers to fuse into a composite blast before any of them could normally.
Oh, that sentence needed to end with Captain Planet.
So it's Earth, Wind, Fire, Water, Aether. By your powers combined, I'm Captain Occult Planet.
There's
not
the
hard.
usual they're the usual feats that give you extra whatever. So like you can take extra mental focus or extended stare or extra focus power. And there are the feats that you would expect that would give you as a non-occult class occult-like abilities, like psychic sensitivity. Overall, I mean, like this is the necessary chapter. There's nothing really in here that jumps out at me as like very, very exciting, except Xenoglossy. Xenoglossy is maybe my favorite feat in this book, because I tend to play characters with high linguistic skills and who just will, for whatever reason, not have the actual language that I need. Xenoglossy fixes that. Maybe I'm the only one excited about Xenoglossy.
No, actually, I agree. It was one of the few feats that stood out to me, not just because it's got a really cool name, but it's a pretty useful and very straightforward ability.
Yep.
And yeah, other than that, everything you said is right. The stare feats are surprisingly fun, and they are surprisingly the only feats in here that are a little bit outside of what you would expect.
Right.
Yeah.
I do
I'd
want
say
to point out a piece of art in this chapter. On page 139, Yoon versus the White Dragon.
That's a good one.
That is amazing.
Hold up,
It's
I'll
just
pull it
it's
up.
beautiful.
I almost
He's
made
just-
that our Cult October background, but I ended up going with the one I picked instead.
The one you picked instead has more of an occult feel. Like, this is an amazing
Yeah.
piece, but it doesn't scream occult or psychic or darkness. It's
That was my
It
original
screams fire.
reason too.
Mhm.
I was like, I gotta do this one. This one is awesome.
The other one. Sorry, there's another feat
Ah.
in here. Sorry, elongated cranium. That is terrifying and great. It goes. It's head binding. It's wrapping your head in really, really tight and compressive bindings over the course of months, and it's incredibly painful. But you force your head into a particular shape, and therefore give yourself a bonus in one of the three mental ability stats, and a penalty in the other two. So it's like you're super specializing, but it's like it's what is the price of power? What is the price that you're willing to pay to get better at that one thing you're good at? So like you can take the bonus to charisma, wisdom, or intelligence, and there's a rider onto it. So like if you take the charisma bonus, you also gain the extended spell feat. If you take the wisdom bonus, you get +1 caster level, and if you take the intelligence bonus, you. No, I've gotten these all wrong. It's okay. You get the gist. It's really creepy and it's really weird, and I like it for that reason.
Go into chat for a few
two
minutes.
feats I'm excited about.
Hold up.
What's up, Aaron?
Hold up. Okay, good. Ooh. Hold up. Stream, are we good? Are we good?
I think we are good. I just wanted to talk about chat for a second.
Okay.
And our 90 says crossing the pyrokineticist with the scroll archetype to make Sailor Mars. I like it.
Yeah.
And Darren Caldemeyer wants us to know tomorrow marks 225 days until PaizoCon.
Bastille also points out that this feat could also be called the Conehead of Power.
Yeah.
Oh,
Darren,
that leads
that brings us to you.
Oh boy, it's time to talk about some psychic magic.
All right, everyone, get comfortable. Param's gonna
Yep.
go on his. All right. Here we go. Go ahead,
Wax
Param.
poetic at us, Param.
Please do.
All right, so psychic magic is different from other different types of magic because Paizo says so. The basic concept of this kind of I'm sold on what they pulled off of, but it was a tough sell because when you think of magic and occultism, it's not a lot of room that we haven't already touched on in some different ways. So what they do with the psychic magic is this basically magic that is completely either secret, emotional, mind-based, or just completely outside of your control, and you just exist with it by not going crazy. So they sort of play into the occult themes. Now, the interesting thing about psychic magic is straight off the bat, it's like we don't care about spellcasting components. We have our own. And what that means is that a psychic mage has no somatic, or it has no verbal components at all. And material components are ignored unless they're costly components. They don't have eschew materials or some way to cheat. They just don't really exist anymore. Psychic magic is not considered divine. They can't use scrolls. That's a kicker. If it's a scroll that's on their spell list, they can't use it. If it's a wand that's on their spell list, they can't use it unless it was specifically designed to be a psychic version of that thing. Which is a limitation the other magic classes don't. Well, they do in the case of the scrolls, but not in the case of the other activation items. So, like, you have to be very specific. So their magic is automatically a little bit more rare. And also, by virtue of there being no prepared psychic magic classes, it also makes it rare because the only people that get this stuff is the people that got it naturally or leveled up in these classes. You're not going to find the book of psychic magic lying on some shelf and it's just like, and this is how you cast mind jab, and that's not going to work. It does introduce the concept, as if this was applying to the whole book, of undercasting, and undercasting really only applies to one class and one other class if you take an archetype. And that is the psychic. And how underclassing works is it lets you cheat a little bit with your fact that you're stuck being a spontaneous spellcaster. Undercasting is sort of them making a nod again to old 3.5 psionics. This is their solution to make that work in this system without making it broke in this system. So how it works is there's a basic set of psychic spells that are basically powers that are going to take up your spell slot. But because they want this to be a core part of your character and to just grow stronger and stronger, you're going to have to take the spell again and again and again, to the point that they name it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like, only summon monsters and natural allies has gotten this treatment before. Let me pull up the specific list here over in the psychic. But what it means is that when you take the 2, like I learn, I don't want to get the names of these right when I shout them out here. Spiritualist, summoner, psychic. Okay, so when I take Mind Thrust, which is their base single target nuke, which is a D6 per caster level, that levels up to a D8 per caster level, and then starts getting riders. So it's the best single nuke in the game. So they're really good at single nuking, psychics are. But when I learn Mind Thrust 2 or Mind Thrust 3, I lose Mind Thrust 1 and 2, and I'm allowed to trade those out for any spell I want to fill those slots. But anytime I want to cast the lower level version of the spell by spending a low level slot, I can. So if I have Mind Thrust 4, I can knock it down to Mind Thrust 2 if I only need a little bit of nuke on the minion, and I don't need to keep on that spell on my spell list. Again, if they were a prepared spellcaster, this would have been a completely meaningless feature. It wouldn't need to exist. So this is just a way for them to sort of straddle the gap, and almost to the point, like, you've got Mental Barrier, Intellectual Fortness, Tower of Iron Will, Ego Whip. Oh my gosh, I love Ego Whip, and I'm gonna go into that in a minute. These are like core powers, and if you have access to these spells, they're so good you should have them. Like, it's almost to the point that you're going to, it would be all too easy to fill every single one of your spell slots with these spells and only get your other spells as you level them up out of the slots, which would have been dangerous. I guess that's one of the reasons why they include this system, because then it would be way too easy to have a character that does 4 things, and that's the only thing they ever do. I'm rambling on about that one feature too much, but that's sort of that's the sort of the key thing about this. The psychic spells are basically, I can teleport. There's lots of things that let you teleport things you normally can't teleport. Apport animal, which is just weird. It stood out to me. It's like, you can teleport a small animal. Like, why? I don't know. But yeah, you can do that. So you can do the bird in the head thing. You can, whatever. There's lots of apport, like teleport small objects.
It's so you can pull a bunny out of a hat, Param.
Oh, this makes sense.
I mean, how else is Madagascar going to pull a rabbit out of his fez?
How else is he going to get a rabbit?
That's what Lem's for.
Oh, Rim's going to be the rabbit?
Yeah, when he's done with them. I'm sure he gets Baleful Polymorph.
Okay, so they basically, like, there's 3 themes with all the spells. There is teleporting around. They have all kinds of options for teleporting things, teleporting themselves, teleporting allies, teleporting enemies. You hit me, I teleport. They're gonna blink around the field. Lots of mobility in their spellcasting, which this is the part I'm not sure on. But because they don't have somatic components, do they even need to worry about casting next to somebody?
Someone in chat earlier said that they do still provoke attacks of opportunity. I'm trying to find out who it was, but basically, does it not call it out anywhere, Param?
There's a few rules that reference it going on, but not super specific. And the ones that do are talking about very specific spells that says, like, that have, like, certain... Okay, so Grey Wolf says that yes, they still provoke. So I was wondering.
I also know that there is, I believe it was a feat that, or some ability that let spiritualists gain a +4 bonus to concentration checks if their phantom was next to them. Which stands to reason, if you're going to make concentration checks, it's I guess it's not just to avoid attacks of opportunity. It could also be to avoid losing spells.
If you look back at the still spell, meta magic feat, like, that removes the somatic component, but you still provoke casting. Like, it allows you to cast without, like, if your hands are otherwise occupied, but you still provoke because it's still a spell, right? Like, the removal of the somatic component doesn't by default mean that you don't provoke in combat.
Okay. Well, that makes a few more of these abilities make a lot more sense, and why there's so many reactive teleport abilities. The other thing that is a common theme is mind whammies. I curse you. I make you forget something. I'm going to. Oh gosh. Basically, it's that. It's lots of different mind affecting effects without everything being charm person or dominate person.
I possess you.
Yeah, I possess you is a fun one. That's
Fine catastrophe. I don't know that.
Just to kick off possession, there's a feat that allows you to be treated as the thing that you're possessing for the purpose of like buffs and like divination spells. Like for all intents and purposes, you are the person that you possess until your possession ends. It's terrifying.
and then
Okay, so go ahead.
sorry. So there's that. There's the mind whammies. There's all kinds of divination variants. You can detect auras. You can read the backgrounds of objects you touch. That's also a skill trick later, but you also get spell versions of that stuff here. Lots of very investigatory things. Every class in this book, especially using this spells, is like tailor suited for every Pathfinder Society game, because it's like, oh, let's get to the stuff that, oh, did we happen to bring the bard or the wizard or the cleric? Well, no, any one of these classes can do pretty much all the investigatory stuff. Summoning, lots of summoning involved here. A lot of summon monsters. Everybody gets summon monsters, which I thought was a little bit of an odd fit for the occult stuff. Because it's still this normal summon monster list. I would have loved to see like summon abominations, summon horrors, summon spirits,
Summon things from between the stars.
Yeah. Totally, that sort of stuff would have been. They have awaken for constructs, which is just one of the weird pet things. So like, hey, Golem, you now are Frankenstein. And psychic dueling and dreaming and creating your own mindscapes is the last theme of this spell thing. And there's whole suites of it. There's Mind Door, there's Create Mindscape, there's limited versions of psychic duels. So you can go full on brain fights in this game. And when you create your mindscape, you get to pick its rules, including I can get to pick if you are now if like damage in here actually counts and you take it in real life, or if you don't know, you can choose to create the mindscapes and trap everybody in them and not tell them it's a mindscape, so they get to go full on Inception in here, which is going to be real. Like a lot of this is GM hook material, and there's the whole psychic dueling system, which is both incredibly complicated and way too simplistic. And all the ways to initiate it are in here with the psychic dueling spells, where you create your own dueling planes and go at it. And it's really cool stuff. Like I said, they just keep iterating on the same themes over and over again to higher and higher levels. And like I did promise I'd go into Ego Whip. Ego Whip is really good because it lets you drain a stat, a mental stat on their target, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then throws on more and more negative side effects as this thing levels up, and you can down and upscale it as you need. It's probably the best stat draining spell in the game now.
It cripples fighters and barbarians.
It's like, nuts.
Ridiculous stat debuff, and you're exhausted. I really enjoyed Parchment Swarm, if only for the art, but also because it's a really powerful spell.
My favorite spell is Explode Head.
I agree with Ryan. Explode Head all
If a creature has 20 hit points or left and has a head that losing that head would kill it, you explode the head and do 2d6 damage to all creatures within, like, what, a 10-20 foot radius? That is amazing. I want to do that to everyone.
Did you see that Philly Venture Lieutenant James McTeague actually won Paizo's Rebuild Rasputin contest by making an Explode Head specialist psychic?
Oh, I didn't get the gist of the contest. So was that his version of Rasputin?
Liz Quartz had a contest a while back where you had to basically take Rasputin, who is an oracle, and Rasputin must die, and rebuild him as an occult character. And
Okay.
our venture lieutenant rebuilt him as a explode head specialist. I want to say psychic. It might have been mesmerist, but he built him as an explode head specialized character. So Rasputin's special ability was to blow up people's heads really, really hard.
I don't know how historically accurate that is, but I want it to be historically accurate.
Well, obviously, Brandon Hodge, the writer of the adventure and co-consultant of Occult Adventures, liked it enough to declare him the winner, and as a result, he gets to have Gom Gom as his form avatar.
Nice.
Aw.
And people in chat are making a lot of Scanners references,
Yes. So, is this a
which
good
makes
point
up for
to
there not being art for Explode Head in this.
Yeah, we can't have that. This is still PG-13, right?
Right.
Now, do we want to move to occult rules?
Yeah.
Are we ready for it? Okay.
Yes, we are.
I'm gonna be pretty quick with this section because a lot of it is GM stuff. It's to help you run an occult game. Although there's a section next after that that does this a little more too. This is like rules mechanics for occult themes. The first section you get is the occult skill unlocks. They are nothing like skill unlocks in Ultimate or Pathfinder Unchained, where Pathfinder Unchained are like special benefits you get for having ranks and skills. These are special skill uses that you have just from being either a psychic spellcaster or having a specific feat. Most of the occult skill unlocks generally have the power level of about a first level spell and then a half. Like the diplomacy one is like a weaker version of suggestion, but it's better than charm person. And the faith healing one is like a weaker version of remove disease and break curse, which are all higher level spells, but it's still not as low in power as a first level spell. The checks are difficult to make. This isn't something you're going to be able to do easily, but the payoff is pretty spectacular for some of them. For example, diplomacy's ability is to essentially charm somebody with your words while they are hypnotized by you. The action auras, emotion
We're
auras,
losing
and
you, Alex.
you're losing me.
Say
You're
something.
better now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, we got you
Okay.
back.
Okay. What was the last thing you guys heard?
We couldn't make it out.
Okay, talking about auras again. So the auras section takes the concept of magic auras and alignment auras that have been in Pathfinder and 3.5 forever, and it expands them to include things like your mental health, your physical health, your emotional state. There's an awesome picture of the iconic Blood Rager with a black aura surrounded him to show that he's covered in rage. There really isn't a whole lot of mechanical benefit to the system. It's just cool flavor for characters who are psychic. That they could say, look, that character is surrounded with black energy. I could tell that that means that he is angry. I'm sure I couldn't figure that out by his face, but I could psychically know it now. The chakras are another thing in this book. It is a system that lets characters use their ki to unlock increased powers, and they get crazy. One of them is like, pay enough points and you can start flying around all over the place, Dragon Ball Z style. The monk is better at this than any other class because you need a ki pool in order to do it, but it's also slanted that you have to pay a lot of ki, and generally speaking, the monk has more ki points than any other. So it's a section that is good for the monk. Other ki-using characters might be able to pull it off, but monk is going to be your primary here. Psychic duels, Param talked about a little bit. You create a mindscape and you fill it with stuff. And specifically, psychic duels are when two psychic spellcasters meet in a single mindscape and start attacking each other, which is fantastically cool. The picture there is of Ravani dueling a Duergar in her mind with, she has like a blue dragon as her projection, and he has like this fiendish beetle monster. And it's really just a cool visual storytelling method that probably has more rules than it needs to, honestly. I'm not going to go too deep into depth because when you get right down to it, it's as robust a system as Downtime, maybe. Yeah, it kind of is like a Downtime thing, except you do it as a fight. It's just lots of rules. Make sure you study it before you put it in your game. This book gives a 2-page spread on possession. It flat out says you should probably replace Magic Jar with the possession spells because they are cleaner than Magic Jar in the terms of what the rules and how they work. and also because, generally speaking, most story-based uses of possession do not involve a small little gem that you shove someone's soul into. So this kind of works better in that regard as well. The final section is the one I'm going to be spending the most time about. It's the occult ritual section. I love this section. And considering that there have been a lot of new occult rituals that have come out in various books since Occult Adventures has been released, I am willing to bet I'm not the only one who likes this section. Essentially, what an occult ritual is, it's a powerful spell that you don't need to be a spellcaster to cast. They take a long time to perform, usually about 10 minutes per level. The more powerful ones that last longer take hours, and you have to have lots of really cool material components, and you can have other people called secondary casters help you cast these rituals. They are at their core designed to be like supernatural rituals, and when I say supernatural, I mean like the TV show Supernatural. You go to like they have things where like go to a crossroads, bury a box with your picture in it, yarrow and parts of a black cat, and then a demon will come. I mean, that's not exactly one, but this is like the level of specificness that some of these rituals have. One of them that is actually in this book opens a door to the dimension of dreams, and you have to go to a place with a coffin and a key, and you turn the key into the air, and it creates a magic door for you guys to walk through. They are really cool story-driven things that can really drive a campaign. Like, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but I've played Wrath of the Righteous, and there is a ritual in book 2 of Wrath of the Righteous. And it's kind of never said how this ritual happens. It's, oh, they're going to do a ritual to do this bad thing. And with these rules, you could actually say, like, okay, this is the time you have. This is how many people they need to pull it off. It is cool. It is fun. It is flavorful. It's something that characters can actually use, but chances are it's better for telling stories. Like, hey, we don't have a psychic in our group to take us to the dimension of dreams, but hey, we can research this esoteric ritual that we can use to get there. And oh, by the way, did I mention that it backlashes and causes us all to be exhausted? And if we really screw it up, we take constitution damage. Rituals are just dangerous, they're fun, and they're flavorful.
Yep. Any final thoughts on the occult rules chapter then?
I'm sorry, guys. I loud through.
For the psychic combat, if you want to say, Pathfinder hates fighters, the psychic combat hates fighters.
Oh yeah.
The better spellcaster you are, just generally, the better you are at psychic combat.
Yes, and psychic spellcasters are better than non-psychic spellcasters. So, like, if you are a psychic, you are already God in reality. You are bigger God in your own reality.
All right, Anthony, that brings us to the running an occult game chapter. Now, there's a lot in here. There's a couple of things I do want to focus on just because we're really over time. The new haunts and the ley lines. Those are the two parts of this chapter that really interested me. What can you tell us about those?
Really? Because I was actually going to say the first part, the running the occult game, is actually the most important because it is so different from how Pathfinder games or how basically mainstream fantasy fiction these days is actually where it's geared. Especially in Pathfinder, where like things tend to be very high fantasy sword and sorcery. There tends not to be a lot of the grimdark, prices of power, mysteries within mysteries, terrible darkness and alternate realities. But the section does detail it very, very well, and there's not really a need for me to go through it here because, like, if you read it, you'll get a lot more out of it than you would if I were to wax poetic for forever. Occult locations is a really, I mean, occult locations, like you said, is an interesting part of this chapter. Specifically, ley lines. I think ley lines is sort of a fantasy buzzword for like place of power, whereas here they sort of start statting up ley lines and what they mean, what they can do. The medium, like we were saying earlier, requires specific points of power for them to access specific spirits. So like they really tie into ley lines. Mindscapes we've touched upon just now. basically setting up your own psychic arena where you want a ridiculous advantage over your opponent, so you just drag them into your mindscape, and you create a world where you are all powerful and they are nothing. I mean, like, see the art on page 234, for example. It's Lem and his evil brother. Just that. Also, really, really enjoy that art. It sets up a bunch of rules for creating mindscapes, and it's basically a parallel to demiplanes. Like, it's creating your own demiplane, but it's in your mind, and it goes into setting up sort of mindscape traits and the types of mindscapes that you can generate. But I skipped haunts, didn't I?
You did.
So old haunt rules were basically
Problematic.
yeah, they were binary. They're basically traps. You either detected it or you didn't, and you either knew what would deactivate it or you didn't, and that was it. It was very sort of like, well, I detect evil. Does it like? There was no way for players to really interact with the haunt without just sort of going like, channel positive energy, hope it goes away. And they were very they weren't. My problem with them is that they weren't very flavorful to the story that could be built around a haunt. Because if you think about it, like, haunts are like the psychic emanations of terrible things that have happened in a specific area, in a dungeon, in a haunted house. The new sort of haunt system with what goes into a haunt. There's a whole table of like the types of acts committed in the area, and then the type of effect the haunt would have is a really interesting read. Yeah, I'm excited to implement it. I want to dive deeper into it before I add it to my games because it seems a little bit nuanced. But yeah, I'm excited by it.
Yeah, haunts always fell short of their potential to me, and it really just felt like the rules were constantly being referenced, but nobody was really building on them. So it's nice, and I didn't really think of haunts as a cult as much as I thought of them as undead, but I really appreciate that they've been re-examined, expanded upon, and I think that these new haunt rules really do bring a lot more of the potential out to the forefront. I think there's still some like very basic mechanics of haunts that I would have liked a little bit cleaner, but as far as like a patch years after the rules were originally introduced, this is a pretty good one.
Yeah, we're talking, what, 6 years now? The first rules were in Skinsaw Murders, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's where the misgivings is, and that was basically, hey, here's Haunts, the dungeon.
Yeah, it got to the point, like, my players didn't want to go into rooms. They're like, well, we can't leave the house and we don't want to explore it, so now what? And I'm like, yeah, I feel like the entire sort of encounter disincentivizes you from exploring, because, like, they had no way to resolve the haunt without triggering it.
Face tanking.
Whereas,
And frankly, they could have avoided most of it. Like, skipping rooms was exactly the way to avoid it, and there was no loss for it. It's, again, one of the problems.
right.
My favorite haunt in that whole area was, oh, now I'm getting into spoiling territory, but there was a haunt where there wasn't a haunt, and my players were just convinced there was, but it was just a mouse.
I guess, you know,
was really, really fun.
I think I'm the only one of the four of us who hasn't done Rise of the Rune Lords. My experience with haunts was in Carrion Crown, and in Carrion Crown, the haunts are like boss monsters. Like, you fight them because they're the manifestations of like bosses, and like in there they're terrifying, and I loved them. So my experience is just a little bit different, I guess.
That's
I
Haunting of
have also
Harrowstone.
played Carrion Crown and did not care for the haunts in Carrion Crown. We have very different experiences with those haunts.
You didn't like the Scribbler?
Which one was the Scribbler? Which book was that in?
First one, Haunting of Harrowstone. He's like the big bad.
Wait,
Now,
yeah,
I
he's
mean,
not
now we're getting into spoilers.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Then instead, let's get into occult rewards.
Yeah.
And this is the last chapter in the book, and I do want to say that the adventuring gear in this was probably, I got more excited with these mundane items because they were just, for mundane items, they were just weird. So I got more excited for this part of this chapter than I did for the actual magical items.
I felt that this chapter was like the feats chapter in that it was, quote, necessary, unquote. I didn't think it was... I wasn't all that blown away by it. Like, there are a couple of cool, weird items in the gear section. Like, the hoodwink cowl is perfect for kidnapping people, bringing them places. Another good one, they gave stats to the occultist implement, so if you're going to have an implement, it has to be worth at least 10 gold. And then there's just a bunch of other little things that tie into the skill unlock systems, kits for those. It's cool. It gives a little bit more flavor and more world explanations for things, but, like... When you get past the basic gear... Oh, before I get back to the magic items, the ventriloquist dummy's art is terrifying. Oh my gosh, that art is terrifying.
Page number?
Like, 251.
251.
It's basically Lord Farquaad, the dummy.
Yeah.
So, the general theme of magic items in this book is either A, filling out magic items for the occult classes, B, making psychic versions of arcane items, or C, meta magic rods for the 2 new feats. Like, there isn't a whole lot in this book that really blew me away, and there really isn't a whole lot. Yeah, I'm sorry, not in this book, in this chapter. There isn't a whole lot in this chapter that really blew me away in terms of what was provided. There were a couple neat ones. I liked the flying skiff, which is like a boat that can fly. I'm like, okay, I can totally buy that. Giving stats to dream catchers was pretty awesome. And if you are a fan of, I'm going to say her name wrong, I always do, I apologize, Freya, the iconic witch?
Freya.
Freya. Is that Freya? I thought there was a J in there.
Freya.
Silent.
It's silent? What's the point of having a J if it's silent?
I thought to go, yeah.
I don't think there's a J.
I give up. So, regardless, if you're a fan of her, she uses Ganji dolls. Ganji dolls actually get stats as a magic item in this book. They're basically voodoo dolls, which is awesome. And before you think that everything is evil, there are 4-leaf clovers, which are
Sorry,
cool.
it's Feya. There's no R. Feiya. Feya.
Okay. There is a smaller version of the mind-stealing mirror, the soul-trapping mirror. It's called the Soul Theft Glass, which is cool. There is a magic chalkboard that's kind of like an Ouija board for talking with spirits. I'm kind of breezing through because what I really want to talk about in the magic item section is a new category of magic items called talismans. Talismans are fantastic. So basically, talismans, and this is my favorite part in this chapter, they are basically a neck item slot that you wear around your neck. All of them have either a lesser, normal, or greater version. The lesser version is expended in one use. The next version, I think, has multiple uses, but only once per day. And then the final one never degenerates. Each talisman gives a really powerful spell-like ability to you. Like one of them, which is by far my favorite, whenever you are knocked below a certain threshold of hit points, it casts Breath of Life on you automatically. And that alone is great. But before you're like, oh, do I really want to replace this with my Amulet of Natural Armor, you could actually wear 3 different talismans in the same neck item slot. So you can either mix and match 3, you can double time 3 of them. However you want to do it, you can. And that right there is what makes them a real contender for that item slot. They include things like protection from evil, so that you can actually use the talisman to ward off possession attempts. I already mentioned the Breath of Life one, which is awesome because it's only like 3,500 gold. It is cheaper than buying a Raised Dead. So if you really need to not die, this could be a good answer for you. It's debatable whether you really want to replace saving money for a Raised Dead spell, but I like it because at least it's death insurance. There's also a bunch of other really cool items that, like arrow protection, where you can actually ward off arrows with it. There's luck, so you can get luck bonuses. Really cool stuff. I really like it. The tinfoil hat is in this book because, of course, the tinfoil hat is in this book. There's actually an artifact version of the tinfoil hat, as a matter of fact. And there are cursed items because no book of the occult would be complete if horrible things couldn't happen to you. Among them, I like the monkey's paw because the monkey's paw is very prominent in occult stories. The maniac's hand is pretty awesome too. It gives you bonuses, but they slowly get worse as you become corrupted by the hand. There are artifacts like portal networks, so if you've ever really wanted to go to Castrovel, you can. There are soul portraits, where it is basically portraits from Harry Potter, where people's consciousness can go inside.
No, this is a picture of Dorian
Dorian
Gray.
Gray.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
A portrait of Dorian Gray.
That's the reference. Is
The
The
portrait
novel?
ages, but you do not. Like it takes your aging for you.
Oh,
But then if you ever see your portrait, then you catch up with your age, usually
That's-
killing you.
so you have to hide your portrait?
Yes.
Yeah, you
Yes.
can never look at it. You hide it. No, you don't want anybody else to find it because then they know what's up. It's Dorian Gray. The reason I really love these cursed
Yeah.
items is that they start with a benefit, so they trick. Like it's the reason all these items made great stories, and the reason why the cursed items that we deal with in D&D kind of pale in comparison is because they start with a benefit. They start with an enticement, a reason you want to try to use this despite the risks, and then no matter what it is, it gets you in the end. But the problem is these are all so famous that we can't use them. So these are just template ideas, or you need to completely reskin it and disguise it, or somehow, because they're great ideas. They're fantastic stories that are bestsellers. So you need to. So I want to take this as a template and use this for designing your own cursed items that you need to let people know about but not know about, and let them get tempted into using it.
Yes.
I'm excited for like all of the loot you find in Strange Aeons to be cursed items.
Oh yeah,
Just
I'll-
every single
Oh,
one of them.
Yes.
I mean, are you gonna have to go through Strange Aeons like a Cthulhu adventure? You burn all the books, never touch any
Yeah.
items.
Yeah.
Burn all the NPCs too, just in case.
Yeah.
If
And then you
everyone in
realize
the
you've
party-
been mad all along.
Oh,
If everyone in the party
Spoilers.
doesn't either die or become insane by the third book, I'll be disappointed.
Spoilers.
no. They already told us in the panel.
Yeah,
you start
in an
insane.
asylum.
Spoilers, you never left the asylum.
Oh no. Well, that's okay. So we're at the end of the book.
Yay! Wait, no, we have to review the OGL. Let's go, Param.
Oh crap. Okay, the section 15, paragraph 3. No, I'm not doing this.
We did skip the esoteric planes. Alex and I have a private sanctuary episode dedicated to it where we cover it in greater detail.
Super
So
detail.
Which
Yeah.
came out today, right?
Yes.
yeah,
It came
this
out
morning.
today. So you should go watch it tomorrow because you people need your sleep. Unless you're West Coasters, which you can go watch it now. Actually, when we're done, I mean. Don't watch it now.
By
Don't
watch
wake
by watch he means listen. We don't do video. We're not that we're not that technical yet.
I expect them to stare at the black screen with just the little play button arrow and just stand there and stare at it. That's what I expect.
Alex has higher
Rapt
standards than
attention.
I do.
I do.
Well, guys, this review went exactly as long as you told me it would, despite me insisting that we would do it in an hour.
Yep.
We tried.
We definitely covered, this is a solid book, and I'm glad that we gave it this much attention. And I'm glad to have you guys on it because you really gave a lot of, you added to the perspective of what makes Occult Adventures such a surprisingly good book. And I say
Yeah, this
surprisingly,
book-
not because I don't expect a good book from Paizo, but just because I expected this to be a niche book that instead I think will become a genre, like a defining hardcover of the Pathfinder role-playing game.
I mean, I hate to say it, but with some of the issues surrounding the advanced class guide and what has become of that book, they really needed to nail this book.
They
and they
did.
did. I mean, otherwise, there was a narrative building that, Paizo's peaked on their quality, and obviously this is a reason. And this book is fantastic inside and out, so
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
If you were one of those
negative thing
naysayers,
I could say about the
they
advanced
gotcha.
class guide, I will have as a compliment for Occult Adventures.
I don't know, man. I could have used an Occult Adventures adventure path.
Well, you just wait till Gen Con and you get it.
Oh, do I get to have you run it for me, Param?
Mardalik.
Oh, crap.
And
You have to
then
run
flashing
it
on the
all
screen,
at Gen
doom.
Con.
I already Skype in one player.
Speaking of Skyping in, we do have an interview planned for this episode. Robert Brookes has been waiting extremely patiently.
Oh my gosh,
for
Robert!
about
I hope
3 weeks
to
now.
goodness you're still there.
He is. He just posted something
Did anyone
not too
remember
long
to feed
ago.
Robert?
So, Alex, Anthony, if there's anything quick you'd like to plug before we say goodbye, now's your chance. Starting with you, Alex.
Watch our review of the Esoteric Planes.
And by watch, he means listen.
Yes. No, I still mean watch. No, totally watch it. Go ahead, Anthony.
Yeah, I think that's it. There's a Pathfinder related Kickstarter Q Workshop combined dice that's going. That was a bunch of words, none of which were in the correct order. There's
I
a
plan
Q
on
Workshop.
showing us that later.
Okay, great. There's a Kickstarter, Pathfinder related Kickstarter that looks really cool. Ryan will give you the details later.
We did a lot on that last episode too. So.
Oh right.
Cool.
Oh, wait, I just remembered something.
Oh, right, yeah.
Anthony is married now. Anthony, show him your bling.
Oh, yes. Congratulations,
it's true.
Anthony.
I am married now. Hello. There's a thing on my finger that signifies that I'm married.
Congratulations.
Oh wow, that was like 3 weeks ago. Hey, look at that.
Well, since the last time we spoke with you.
True story.
He vanished. It was good.
Life is not significantly different, but I have the paperwork that says it is.
All right. Well, we will leave now so you can interview Robert and keep everyone up for another hour.
All right. Apparently, Robert has candy for us, so I'm looking forward to that.
I like candy.
I know.
My mother taught me I should leave when that offer is made. So, see you later, guys.
So, good night,
All right. Take it easy, guys.
Later. That's weird. Ooh, down one. All right, guys, that was a fantastically long review, but I think I'm happy with it. We had a lot to say. We were very happy with the book, and so we has it.
All right. Well, while we wait for Robert to join us, we might be having a couple of Skype issues. It says he's available. Robert, where are you?
Robert.
While we're waiting for Robert, I will get into some of the news that's happening outside of RPG Superstar, because that's one of the reasons we're bringing Robert in. As a veteran of RPG Superstar, he's going to be kind of giving us an RPG Superstar update as we go into the last couple of rounds. But in other news, we do have a new Pathfinder organized play coordinator. So it is... Hello, Robert. There he is. It is Tanya Woolridge. She is a veteran of Pathfinder Society. I believe she's a 5-star GM. She's been around the boards for a long time now. And this is probably the most important news as far as hirings go, because this is kind of our surrogate within Paizo. We, as players of Pathfinder Society, and just as a fan base in general and player base in general, are represented by the organized play coordinator. And it is up to them to listen to us, see what the people are talking about. Usually there's an emphasis on Pathfinder Society, but the issues that we might have with the rules within Pathfinder Society are often reflected with a grander thing that might be any issues with the game. And it is the Pathfinder Organized Play Coordinator that helps us get our voice heard. So congratulations, Tanya. I'm really excited to see what you bring to the campaign, because on top of everything I just said, the Organized Play Coordinator tends to be the kind of person that their personality really shines through in how organized play and how Pathfinder Society plays out. So we are good to see what Pathfinder Society is like once you've really settled in and start implementing your ideas. The other bit of news is Pathfinder Tales is on Audible. This was officially announced in a press release sent out earlier this week, but it's been talked about since Gen Con that the plan is for the entire Pathfinder Tales line to be added to Audible as audiobooks.
They're right now, there's only quick on that, actually.
I actually have no idea how long it takes to produce an audiobook, so if you believe that this was a quick turnaround time, I'll default to you as someone with more experience in the matter.
Well, they started with just the 2, and then a third one went up like a couple of days later, so yeah, they're moving fast.
Right. We've got Redemption Engine by James L. Sutter, King of Chaos by Dave Gross, and then Night Glass was added. Night Glass by Leanne Merciel.
Pirate's Honor went up.
Pirate's Honor is up as well?
Yep.
What's interesting about all the books they're choosing is that they are the series within Pathfinder Tales, and except for maybe Night Glass, none of them are the first part in the series.
I know, it's so weird.
It is a little bit strange. I mean, Pirate's Honor especially. Great book. I loved it, but even better as a sequel. Whereas the Dave Gross books, they all, like, there's a benefit to reading them in an order, but they all stand alone a little bit better. But Pirate's Honor
Pirates Honor is
just
the first one. Pirates Promise is the sequel.
Oh, okay. Well, then I take everything back. Pirate's Honor is there, so you get the beginning of that story exactly as it should be.
Mm-hmm. And you should. That was one of our favorites.
So, Param, is Robert ready?
Robert, are you up?
Yeah, I'm awake.
Awesome! We've got a Robert!
So, Robert, thank you so much for your patience. You were you agreed to be a last-minute replacement in the last episode when we were talking to third-party publishers, and then I had to uninvite you at the second to last minute, or at the later than last minute, and you were totally cool with that. So I am really happy to make up to you just being so cool by having you on today's episode to talk about a combination of things. You are the publisher of Encounter Table Publishing, and you've got a pretty cool Kickstarter coming up. And we want to talk about RPG Superstar because you are a veteran of RPG Superstar. And you know what? I'm going to leave it to you. Which one would you rather start with?
Let's start with RPG Superstar. That's kind of topical.
All right,
Awesome.
excellent. RPG Superstar went into round 4, which is the top 8. Just recently, the voting is still open. Or is it?
It is.
Yeah, until October 18th. So we've got 4 more days to vote in RPG Superstar for round 4 before we find out the final 4, and people will pitch their adventure ideas. So up until now, Robert, what are some of the highlights and surprises been from the RPG Superstar Season 9?
You know, honestly, I haven't been too terribly surprised by this season, but I've been impressed with the authors that have come through. I think there's a really good lot of people this year. Last year, I called who the winner would be, probably, I think, by round 2. I knew Monica was going to kind of walk away with everything. And I have my eye on someone this year that I think is probably a shoo-in, but I don't want to really say anything on it as of yet.
You don't want to direct the voters.
Yeah, and I think it's progressed about the way I would have expected. There's been some upsets of people who had some really promising starts and kind of floundered in some of the later rounds. But overall, everyone has some really solid design skills, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see most of these people, more so than in the last few years, come back as freelancers, whether it be working for Paizo or a third-party company.
You say more so in the last few years, but I find that there's been a lot of RPG Superstar veterans that have been getting a lot of freelance work.
Yeah, I just think the earlier rounds were more solid than normal. Even the open submissions, the magic items. I saw, going through the voting, more items that I was impressed with this year than I was last year. And I think there's a good kind of support group for people now to develop those skills. Freelance Forge that Mike Kimmel runs, and just on the Paizo forums themselves. I think it's like the Burning 9 or something like that, where they discuss like the RPG Superstar kind of aesthetic and the design system for it. So I think people are kind of making themselves stronger competitors as a whole. So I think that's just kind of rising tide lifts all boats sort of situation.
Well,
Do you think that the change in the time of year that they're running RPG Superstar also influenced that?
Oh, definitely. I think not having it be in the holiday season was a huge turn for them. That's a very good idea. Both for Paizo, having more capacity to actually manage the competition, and for the competitors not to be juggling, family responsibilities and the like.
Oh, Param, did you have a question?
I was sort of theorizing that, this is the 9th time at bat at this. A lot of us are just sort of figuring out the formula, and I would imagine that the successful entrants of, they've got 9 rounds of experience to base their work on.
Exactly.
Now, you've been to this, you were in the top 8 your year, correct? I
was in the top 4.
You were in the top 4. Okay, so what are the challenges that the top 8 and eventually the top 4 are facing?
The top 4, the top 8, the hardest challenge they face is presenting something new. This year, last year, the year before, everyone tries to... There are competitors that try and dip into their previous successes to pull out something that went well, be it like a monster from their monster round, a magic item from their magic item round. They try and kind of hitch their trailer to past successes, and I think relying on that too hard can be a little touch and go. Some people might buy into it. Other people might just see it as a lack of diversity. So really showing what you have and the type of skills, the verisimilitude of your skills is really important. Don't kind of pigeonhole yourself as the person who's really good with fairies or the person who's really good with dragons. Like you've got to show a broad level of skill. And especially in the top 8, that's the most important because people are really starting to get familiar with what you do. And if you're only good at one thing, that's what's going to show through.
Well, it's also going to hurt your freelancing because, like, you hit a year like this where we're basically doing Cheliax for a few years. If you're the guy that's not very good with social stuff, then you're going to have a bad freelance career right now.
How much should the contestants' knowledge of Paizo's release schedule over the next couple of years, how much should that influence their design?
I think the schedule isn't so as important as looking at what kind of products are coming out. Maybe that's part of the question. It's having a little bit of foresight into the kind of material that's coming out is really critical, especially in the design and adventure round. That little beep was me, I think.
Oh.
The adventure designing round definitely hinges on getting a little bit of a foresight into what might be coming down the pipe, because you don't want to design an adventure that they've kind of already got an idea for. And I think you can see some of the failing in that with what Mike Kimmel did last year. He had a Cantargo-based adventure that very, very similarly mirrored some of the themes of Hell's Rebels, which was already kind of in the design and development stage when this was happening. And I think that might have hurt his chances a little bit. And just being familiar with what Paizo's going to do or what they've already touched on in the areas that are room for develop can give you kind of an edge on what you want to lead into.
What about the judges for the round? How much should you play into what you think they like?
Oh, that's probably one of the strongest parts. Know your audience, and your audience is the judges. To a secondary degree, it's also the other voters, but the judges sway the votes pretty strongly. There haven't been a lot of huge upsets where the judges really panned something and then the crowd kind of came back and said, no, this is good. Their opinion has a lot of weight. And knowing who they are, what they like, the particulars of the kinds of little details that might get on one judge's nerves that doesn't get on another's, it all adds up. And familiarity with them, that can kind of make or break any one of the rounds.
And you said last year you called Monica Marlowe being the winner of it all fairly early on, and that you've got a favorite this year. What are the qualities of these two people that you think make them the RPG superstar?
They're thinking outside the box. Some of the things that I really liked about what Monica's submissions were is that they didn't look like they came from someone who was reiterating the same tropes and ideas that you've seen kind of throughout, tabletop history. And Monica, not really coming from a tabletop background, I think contributed to that. Her ideas were, while they were set in kind of familiar and recognizable settings, pursued some unique ideas. And I think the hopeful that I have in my mind for this year does sort of similar work. I almost gave it away a little bit, trying to hedge myself a little bit here. But not relying on past convention, but also at the same time not alienating the judges. If you can strike that balance, you're going to go all the way.
And what might the contestants be feeling behind the scenes right now?
Oh, complete and utter terror. It's pretty much just months of panic and anxiety. The first stage, it's almost like the stages of grief, but there's less of them and they're more intense. When you're working and developing and trying to design something to fit the word count, you're always second guessing yourself, sometimes to your own detriment. And then once it's time for the voting, it's just that silent, terrifying panic because you really can't comment on your own work. Especially hard when you see someone saying something that's actually incorrect, or they're jumping to kind of a different conclusion, or they're interpreting the rules wrong, and you want to correct them, but you really can't and shouldn't. That's one of the hardest things to deal with is just sitting on it and taking the criticism and letting it go. But that's also a really strong skill for a freelancer or a developer or designer to take, is people are not going to like your stuff. You're never going to appeal to everyone. You're never going to get everyone to like what you're doing. So get used to seeing a couple Razes, especially ones that aren't really on the mark, and you're going to be better off for it.
Only one of these 7 is going to be the RPG Superstar. What advice do you have for the? Or sorry, only one of these 8 is going to be the RPG Superstar. What advice do you have for the 7 that won't quite make it, but have made it quite far in the tournament and have probably made a name for themselves already?
The advice is they've still made it. If you make it to the top 8, you're pretty much guaranteed to get freelancing work. I mean, I was only in the top 4, and I've worked on almost every product line Paizo has, aside from like the adventures. And you show your writing skills, you have a really personable attitude, and you're easy to work with, and it's going to take you a lot of places. The top 8 just really need to look to put their foot in the door. Look for open calls. My first work outside of RPG Super, I think Crichton had I heard a whoa come somewhere.
Well, we lost you there for a second.
Oh, did you?
Did we? I heard him, but I guess if you lose him, then...
The audience loses him.
Okay, so from Raging Swan Press, I guess that's around when you lost him, Barham?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My first work outside of RPG Superstar was with Raging Swan Press. They had an open call, and I submitted a couple things that I had done, talked about RPG Superstar, and Crichton picked me up, and I did a few good books for them. I think just putting yourself out there afterwards, look for the open calls, look for people who are willing to take on new freelancers, and then just sell yourself. Don't be afraid of saying, I did this, I think it's great, other people thought it was great too. Humility's nice, but there comes a certain point where you have to sell yourself because no one else is going to.
So what are some of the things that you've been up to since RPG Superstar?
Sometimes there's so much going on that I kind of lose track of it all. I've been doing a lot of freelancing, third party and for Paizo. I worked on Occult Adventures, which I hear you guys might have had a word or two about earlier today.
Yeah, apparently you wrote all the archetypes I liked.
Yeah, I did quite a bit of work on Occult Adventures. I worked pretty closely with Brandon on that. I'm surprised one of the archetypes I designed that everyone mentions whenever I talk about it didn't come up, and that's the Promethean Alchemist, where you create your own little creepy child homunculus. That has been something that people talk to me about whenever I mention I worked on the book. Either they love it or they're terrified by it, one of the two. But I put a lot of good work into that, and that was pretty much the biggest assignment I got after RPG Superstar. I also worked on Bestiary 5, which hasn't come out yet, but there's some amazingly awful things in there that I think everyone's really, really going to like. But the big thing, and I guess this kind of segues into the other thing we were going to talk about, is Aethera. This starts back probably a decade ago. The group I play with that I'm still playing with now, before Pathfinder was coming out, this was at the tail end of 3.5. Going into 4th edition, we looked at it, decided it wasn't for us, and we wanted to kind of continue on, so we were going to make our own setting. We did a lot of design and development work on basic themes and concepts, and then we promptly got distracted once Pathfinder came out and started running in Galarian. So those notes just got tossed aside. Last year, I found those notes, and I thought, well, this will be a nice, humbling experiment. I'll look back through them and be embarrassed. And while there were some parts that I probably wouldn't design the same way today, the core of it was actually really strong. And most surprisingly, it hadn't been done yet. There's a kind of a turn of a phrase that goes around in my group called being vortexed. We tend to design things about 6 or 7 months before they actually come out in print. I had, at the tail end of 3.5, designed a class that would effectively become the summoner. It even had the modular bits and pieces for the Eidolons. It was 3/4 base attack class, just as broken. It was all kind of the same stuff. And I'm sorry, Rob, that I'm crapping on summoner for a moment. But it's Aethera's core was solid. It was a good idea, and I brought it up to a couple other people that I've freelanced with, and they thought it was interesting. So I said, you know what? I've been in the industry a little while. I know enough about publishing to try and get a start. I know to look to people who know more than me in the areas I don't, and I came up with a team. I reached out to some freelancers, and I put together an absolutely astounding team of freelancers. continuously amazed by the content they're putting out. But Aethera is science fantasy. It's not like Iron Gods, which is more science fiction with some fantasy elements kind of draped over it like a shed skin. Aethera is more Star Wars, where Iron Gods is a little more Herculoids meets Mad Max in a way.
I mean, Hercules was intentional.
Oh, yes, very much so. James Jacobs loves his Herculoids. Aethera's concept is very planet spanning. It's very you have starships. There's space combat. Thurston Hillman, who's actually doing first adventure in Hell's Vengeance, is doing our space combat rules for us. I think he's on chat too right now. And we're looking to build this really great system of party-based space combat, where you've got the leader of the group is piloting it, and then the other group members have different roles they fill in alongside the rest of the parts of the ship. You might have a spellcaster shooting lightning bolts across at the other ships. It's designed to be fast-paced, where nautical combat's kind of slow and ponderous, and it takes a while to turn the ship. This is supposed to be something that is very snappy and kind of streamlines the normal Pathfinder combat down to something that can be run faster. But that all kind of fits in with the general trappings of Aethera, being this very large space opera of a campaign setting. And we wanted to take it away from the basic fantasy tropes. So there aren't elves, there aren't dwarves. You're not going to see a lot of the core races represented except for human. And we've developed 4 of our own unique races for it that we've been previewing the iconics for at AetheraRPG.com. There's a race of genderless plant creatures that are native outsiders born from an elemental plane of wood. There's these biomechanical constructs that are really into body modification, like adding weapons and armor onto themselves. A really large animal beast race that, they wield huge weapons, but they're also kind of these deeply spiritual and very adaptable people. They're quick to learn new concepts and technologies. And then there's a race that's just a victim of horrible genetic experimentation, and they have these wild, uncontrollable, innate magical powers. And we're kind of taking these races and putting them into a multi-planet campaign setting where you can travel from world to world, and the themes vary so differently from them. It's not just, here's Japan in space, or here's China in space, that you kind of get with a lot of those multi-planet campaign settings, or even more ridiculous if you look at what Spelljammer was doing, a little tongue-in-cheek. But we're building something that's trying to tell a lot of diverse stories, and we kind of built it with a diverse team. Some of the newcomers I have are all first-timers. Isabel Leach, Jessica Powell, Dwan Bird, Josh Riviera, Jeff Dahl, Sarah Hood. They're these very new to Pathfinder, but probably not new to fantasy writing people that have brought a unique perspective as not coming from tabletop to develop something that really kind of tells a different story. Much like how what I saw and what Monica was doing was telling a different take on standard fantasy. We want to do a different take on science fantasy. We want to do something that you could probably imagine might be in something like Star Wars, but has its own unique feel to it. I was nervous when Legendary Planet started coming out. Legendary Games' own space kind of fantasy thing, but they're more John Carter of Mars style, go through the gates, sword and sandal kind of thing. So we're doing 2 very different thematical elements. So I'm worried that I'm not so worried as I'm treading over Jason's stuff. And I kind of distanced myself from Legendary Planet. I was offered to work on it, but I didn't really want to have too much overlap. And I'm glad, because I think we're developing 2 really nice complementary pieces. And with Aethera, other than the new people I have, I've got a lot of Paizo freelancers and others. Todd Stewart, who wrote Paizo's Planes book, is doing our planes. Mike Kimmel and Monica Marlowe, who were both in RPG Superstar last year, are doing some work on it. Mike's bringing his teacher background in history into helping develop the setting. Monica's just kind of taking a thread about evil fairies and running wild with it. And Liz Courts is helping with layout. Savannah Broadway, who was intern for Paizo, is doing our editing. Thurston, as I already said, is definitely doing some awful things with space combat and some really terrible, terrible, terrible monsters. That's been consuming a lot of my time, and the Kickstarter for it, which starts next Wednesday, is going to be a huge part of it, because publishing a book that's going to be the core book for the Aethera campaign setting is 400 pages right now. That's going to be, a monumental cost, and doing that without the backing of a major publisher, it's a challenge. But I think we have something that really speaks to a lot of different people, and that was part of my goal with it, was really getting a diverse background of people to really, much like with the Iconics and Occult Adventures, you've got kind of an overweight Iconic, you had an older woman. I kind of wanted to have a campaign setting that spoke to people that aren't as majority represented. There was some talk in the chat earlier with Occult Adventures about how we almost had an Iconic in a wheelchair in Occult Adventures. And we're definitely doing an Iconic that has a disability for Aethera. I don't want to give too much away on that. I think that's going to be in one of the previews coming up. But being able to see yourself in a tabletop game is something that I feel really strongly about. There was a post on the Paizo boards when Occult Adventures came out from someone who saw the Iconic Occultist and said, wow, I'm someone I can finally cosplay as and not feel awkward. And that really kind of struck a nerve with me. I'm like, oh, wow, that it really means something to people when they can see themselves represented in a game. And it isn't just about like trying to have every kind of thing balanced. It's about making the game for people. And that's the thread we want to run with. We want to make Aethera a game for as many people as possible, and we want to be able to show as many people as possible. And that's not something we can do without having as many different voices designing the game as we can.
Now, I was picking up on a few things you were saying here that kind of twerked my attention. It's like you mentioned elemental planes and fairies and magic, and this is a lot more fantasy than I'm used to seeing in my science fantasy. What can you say about that?
So one of the things we wanted to do was not make it hard sci-fi, and I think the big piece of the setting that drives that are the planets. The star system that the campaign setting is built around was manufactured. That's part of one of the main mysteries of the campaign setting, is who built the solar system, because the particulars of it prevent deities from being able to view into it. They can't see it, they don't know what's happening inside of it, and their powers don't reach it. As such, classes that are reliant on worshiping a deity, clerics and war priests, are pretty much the two major call-outs. They just don't exist. The other healing classes kind of take up their role. Oracle, there's a new class we're designing called Cantor, which is a divine spellcasting bard, and they kind of fill the cleric niche. And each of these worlds is attuned to an elemental plane. And I'll talk a little bit about something I haven't mentioned in any of the previews yet. In the early history of the campaign setting, each of these worlds gradually moved through a cycle. The world that was attuned to the element of earth was very dry and barren, and then it would move to, say, the element of water. And its seas would rise, the ocean life would diversify, and this would happen over tens of thousands of years. And each of the planets would rotate on this elemental cycle. Well, a group of creatures who are known in the contemporary age only as the progenitors came along and said, this is great, how can we screw with this? And they locked all of these planets into their current elemental state. And they discovered that by doing this, they basically created a friction between where the elemental and material planes pressed on the ethereal. And like a hydroelectric dam, they turned that into power. And they used that to power this great civilization. What happened was that built up friction and tension between the planes, and eventually it just broke down. And there was a catastrophic realignment of all the planets, going through tens of thousands of years of change in the matter of just a few days. So the planet of water suddenly shifted to Earth. All the oceans dried up, leaving these colossal, kind of like oil rig arcology structures, high and dry. The people that were living on tiny archipelagos and islands were suddenly on mountaintops, and this happened across all of the different worlds. And this catastrophic collapse is kind of the impetus of the campaign setting. And it takes place... The modern people don't know exactly how long it's been since the collapse happened. It kind of devastated all the different societies. They believe somewhere between 4,000 years or so, but it's hearsay. Every culture kind of says it's a little bit different and paints themselves in a different light because of it. But this catastrophic collapse kind of builds the backbone of the magic that's seen throughout the storyline. It crystallized the ley lines, which here I am talking about ley lines again. It crystallized the ley lines, destroyed all of them, and they had to regrow. If you imagine the ley lines as a circulatory system for magic, pumping it across the planes and beyond, these crystallized pieces were left derelict on all the worlds, sometimes drifting in space. And eventually a culture came about and realized, hey, we can use this like fuel. And they bootstrapped themselves to the old powerless technology the progenitors left behind and started fueling technology with raw, crystallized, poisonous magic. And that's where a lot of the technological advancements of the setting come from. It's magical technology. You'll have engineers, sorcerers, and wizards building these contraptions called aether ships that literally hurl them through space with telekinesis. So it takes a spin on the stuff in the technology guide and develops it in a more fantasy-themed setting. And all that's kind of painted across with our visual aesthetic, which is Art Deco, Art Nouveau, 1920s, 1930s. So it takes kind of diesel punk and throws magic into it. And that creates kind of a feel of a campaign setting that really hasn't been seen in Pathfinder yet.
I'm surprised you're saying there's a lot of diesel punk in it, because just looking at the art, when I think of diesel punk, I just think of just nasty, dirty clouds of blackness. And, I haven't seen any of that reflected in any of the art you've previewed so far.
Yeah, it hasn't come up yet. We're only previewing 5 iconics before the Kickstarter. There's 10 in total, 2 for each race. And during the Kickstarter, we'll be bringing up more of the iconics. One of them is a much more diesel punky kind of Mad Max looking person, and I think people are really going to dig that one. I think they'll be pleasantly surprised by what it is. But yeah, the preview art that we have right now focuses on some of the more civilized areas, or the more wild areas. In the case of the plant race, the Arathi.
I'm trying to make sense of a comment in chat from Dry Prime. He says this is a brilliant plan without flaw or possibility of fail.
Well, that's one of my freelancers, I think. So I'm not sure what he's getting at, but
he obviously thinks very highly of what you're doing.
Hopefully. Otherwise,
what about the Kickstarter itself? If people are backing it, are there any particular reward levels that they can look forward to, or stretch goals that you have in mind?
We've got some pretty good rewards. The first thing that's free to all the backers is going to be a promotional comic book that we're doing. There's an artist, Jadeite Kasi, who does Fox Sisters and Sphere Theory, is doing a 5-page promotional comic that all the backers get a physical printed copy of. Her art style is fantastic. If you look up Fox Sisters, look up Sphere Theory, she's got a very, very unique style I don't think you've seen in tabletop before, and it'll play into our style really well. She's also going to be doing the chapter opening art. You know, like how Pathfinder has like the little story and a blurb of art. We're doing a 2-page comic book spread to open each chapter that kind of tells a bit of a story, and she'll be doing the stories for that. The Kickstarter is also going to have some new adventures that help you kind of get into the setting. They're like about 12,000 words, Pathfinder Society scenarios sized. Monica Marlowe is going to be doing one. Wes Schneider has said he will help. I think he's going to do an adventure, but I haven't been able to pin him down on it. He definitely wants to get in on the Kickstarter rewards, though. I'm still pinning down some of the stretch goal people. I'm actually talking with, and this is not in the bag yet, but pretty close. The ink isn't dry yet. But the composer of Journey's soundtrack, the PlayStation 4 game, I'm in negotiations with his agent right now to get a promotional soundtrack for the game done. And his work, if you haven't listened to the soundtrack for Journey, it's just enormous and evocative and astounding. And having him on board is going to be a huge coup. And I'm kind of nailing down the last few bits of that. But he'll bring a very big band, 1920s musical vibe to everything to kind of, you can play it along with your games, you can listen to it, there'll be battle themes, there'll be themes for different worlds, and depending on exactly where that lands in the stretch goal, we'll have a certain number of tracks. And there'll be more to see. I think there's a lot of good surprises in the stretch goals. Everyone who pitches in, I think it's the second tier, is going to get a printed copy of the book. The PDFs come with the lower levels, and I think with a 400-page PDF, you're going to want to go for the print version. It's a massive book.
And it's full color, right?
It's full color.
That's the
Yeah.
intention. Awesome.
Yeah, it's full color. We have some artists who have worked for Paizo in the past working on it. Some new. Mohammed Mokhtar, who did our concept art, is going to be doing some of the interior art for it as well. He works for a game studio in London. I forget the name off the top of my head, but he's got a very, very distinct visual style that I think helps kind of speak to the tone of the setting.
I've been throwing up some of your page and art from your page, and the production quality and talking about bringing in this is a lot higher production quality than I'm used to seeing from pretty much any third-party production I've seen for this game. Is this massive? Is this really massive to try to organize?
It's enormous to organize. We're using a collaborative software called Basecamp. We have 31 freelance writers working on the project right now. And Basecamp is one of the tools Paizo uses for their freelancers to help coordinate, develop, and design. I had a little bit of an edge in on this prior to doing freelance writing and prior to kind of settling down and doing office drudgery. I worked in the video games industry. I did concept art and content design. So I worked on projects of this scale and larger before. So I kind of know a little bit about the wrangling that needs to go on in it. The publishing end, the book printing, that's all new to me. So I'm kind of leveraging experienced minds for that. But the team leadership stuff, that just kind of comes with the territory. And it's been daunting, but the team has been working together so well. We had a month of brainstorming before they went into writing and working on it, where I handed out the design Bible. I said, here's what we have. Here's what the core team's done. And take a look at it. Let me know what you think. And all of the writers kind of picked it apart. They were like, this works, that works. This is a little problematic. What if we presented it in this light? And it already dramatically improved the detail of the content, the respectability of the content, and the quality of the content. Without the freelancers, it wouldn't be nearly as good of a book as it is going to be. And I think they've done a fantastic job and deserve way more credit than freelancers usually get for the books that get published. But it is a huge undertaking. It's an absolutely massive undertaking. 400-page hardcover. The only other one I can think of off the top of my head, other than, the core rule book that Paizo put out was Dreamsguard Press's Ultimate Psionics. And that was a massive undertaking for them, too.
I can think of some other huge ones, but they're all like collection books, like Tome of Horrors and
Yeah, that's true. Tome of Horrors. Yeah, there's not a lot of.
But those are collection books. That's a different scope of product.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to present entire star systems worth of content in a single book, so that people really only need the one book to run the game and the Pathfinder core stuff. But we have some product lines, hopefully in the future, should the Kickstarter really pick off. We've got a 6-part adventure that's outlined, a race book, a technology book. There's a lot we want to do, but we kind of need to get that footing under us to really nail it.
When are you expecting the campaign to go live?
This coming Wednesday, the 21st.
Awesome. Well, Robert, thanks a lot for joining us. Thanks for your patience with us.
Hey, no, it's been a pleasure.
Why don't you remind people where they can find out more information about, it's pronounced Aethera?
Aethera.
Aethera.
Yeah.
Where they can find out more about Aethera.
You can find us at Facebook at Aethera RPG. We're also on Twitter at Aethera RPG and AetheraRPG.com.
Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot, Robert.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me, guys.
We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this.
Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups and shoutouts. Wrap-ups. Wrap-ups and shoutouts.
Thank you for joining us for episode 117 of No Direction. Special thanks to Alex Agunas and Anthony Lee, the men behind the Private Sanctuary podcast, for really raising the stakes for the Occult Adventures review. I think that they covered ground that we never would have thought to, Param. Do you agree? And thank you very much, Robert Brookes, for joining us and telling us all about the Aethera RPG and your Kickstarter that's coming up. And, of course, giving us coverage and insight into what the RPG superstars or the RPG superstar hopefuls might be feeling right now. Before we go, we do like to give some shout-outs and plugs to some things we think people might be interested in. First one's a little bit selfish. But if you go to boardgamebento.com, this is Blind Ferret's new blind box subscription service, and I am the project manager on this one, and this one has my fingerprints and DNA all over it. So Board Game Bento is the blind box subscription service. Every month we promise you $80 or more worth of board games and accessories for $50 a month plus shipping and handling. The idea is that you don't know exactly what games you're getting, but we'll tell you the theme. We'll tell you that of the $80 of board games and accessories we promise, probably $70 to $75 of that is board games. The accessories help round out the cost and help make a unique experience for the games when you're pulling them right out of the box. The first theme is Spooky Game Night, and that's Night with a K, which may be a hint about what you might find in the first box. We're taking only 200 subscribers this month, so I encourage anyone that is interested in board games, interested in expanding their selection, because there's a lot of cool board games that are out there right now. And board games, the industry is kind of built around flavors of the month. So a lot of times a game will hit, it will be successful for a very short period of time, and then people will remember it fondly, but no one will really be buying it anymore. So we're helping to get these games, these good games, these games that publishers are really still behind, even though they're not selling anymore, get them into the hands of gamers that will appreciate them. Maybe like you.